All right. I believe we have started. Let's
Oh,
take a
really?
second to see if anyone actually pops into chat or if I've done this terribly wrong. After
All right,
all
just a
these
second.
years, I still every time I'm like, I don't know how this works.
I see it on the channel, so I'm going to copy the link
It
and
does
I'm going
exist. Ha
to
ha
leave it.
ha.
Yes. Aha. We have at least one person watching. Our
Hey,
very own
Indigo.
Indigo. Hello. Oh, boy, let me
All right, I'm
just...
gonna pour myself some water. Ah,
Good idea.
and they pour in.
And
Oh my
paste
God, it's
the
going
tasting
fast.
link.
Chat is speedy.
Of course it's going fast. Tweet. And good. Oh my god. Yep, there they are.
Yeah, right.
Oh boy. Hello everybody. Welcome to one of our least planned streams of all time, short
Yeah.
of my completely unplanned streams, basically.
Like, basically what happened was yesterday we're like, should we do a stream or something? We're like, yeah.
Yeah. We do have a plan for the actual 2 million celebration, but we sort of cheated and like futzed the buffer a little so we could put it up on Friday instead of having to rush something else. So look forward for that little fun thing on Friday. But we were like, this is kind of big, and like we just hit it and sort of
should do
cleared it by
something.
like a few hundred. We should do something,
Yeah.
yeah. So here we are.
Ta-da. As we're about to get started,
$1 from Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
Perfect.
I don't want to know where that dollar came from. As we're getting started here, we're about to go wandering around in Venice for a little impromptu vacation. Red, would you be able to jump into the settings for our stream and turn on subscriber-only chat, as well as there should be an option for subtitles, which we
Right.
discovered after the last stream. There is a way to do subtitles, but you have to turn it on every
Really?
time we stream. I have told YouTube about this, and hopefully they're going to do something to fix it. Because it's like, this is a great setting. It should be on by default.
I will see what I can do. Let's see. Analytics, viewer activity. No, that's not really what I wanted. Stream settings. Ah. Well, there is a switch for closed captions, but I can't click it.
Oh.
Yes. Hold on.
That's annoying.
Wait, just a second, just a second. I might
Yeah.
have been in the wrong place. Customization, participant mode, subscriber only chat, minimum subscriber time 5 minutes. Save. Let me see if I can get the captions in too. Well, most audience, blah blah blah. No, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Dang it. Oh well.
Yeah,
We'll look into it more. It seems like there are some settings that you can only turn on when you're streaming, and some, I guess, that you can only turn on before you're streaming. But let's not dally too much on that. In the meantime, we're here. 2 million subs. I'm just gonna play some Assassin's Creed 2 because I haven't done that since like March, and I thought it would be fun.
Yeah.
We'll play some of the missions and probably do some of this, like grab a guy, pull him up, throw him fully into the piazza. Hey, yeah.
Hey.
The last time I played this game was the last time we streamed it, which was a while ago.
It's been
I
a
don't-
hot minute, yeah.
I don't know what I even want to do. Let's see. Let's get
Is there anyone
that.
that needs assassinating?
Yeah,
I guess-
let's start the story mission. I don't know when in the game we are. I think we just got to Venice. Yeah, okay, we've got this big dumb tailing mission. Let's go over that way. Fantastic. Okay. So last we were in, I think we did the we fought the business guy and stabbed him in his house, and now we have to go kill the Doge because of reasons? No, we have to. Well, we'll get to it in a second. It's been a while since I played this part of the game. I think we're going to start to unravel the conspiracy.
Also,
with...
sorry, just real quick, a tech
Yeah.
thing. We have the stream that's currently going, but I think when we had that weird little hiccup right before we started streaming, it like made a duplicate stream that's currently listed as upcoming. You want me to
Oh.
just delete that?
Go ahead and delete that.
Just in case it causes problems. Yeah, all right.
Dang, that is, yeah. When we were starting the stream, it gave us a little glitch thing, and I guess it had a half
Yeah.
stream. Interesting.
Yeah, we're fine. I mean, as long as this doesn't somehow break everything, we should be good.
Nah. It's good when you have people to cushion your fall. It's a useful strategy. Okay.
Let's see. It's working on it. It's chugging. Anyway, yeah. So from what I remember of this game, your family's dead, but this doesn't seem to be much of a factor at this point.
Essentially, the plot that we've done thus far is our family is indeed dead. They got killed very early from a conspiracy by evil Templars, which we didn't know was a conspiracy by evil Templars because we were just Renaissance fuckboy
Right.
who had no understanding of any of this. And then we killed a bunch of Templars in Florence, and then we're like, but there are more Templars in Venice, so we have to go to Venice instead. And we got here. We met this evil business guy who was trying to do like financial crime and monopolize the city's trade, and we killed that guy. And now what we're doing, I think, with this next mission is we're going to find out that there are other evil bad guys, because when we were going to kill the first guy, he was like, yes, the others will surely be pissed about this, and then here we are meeting the other guys.
Perfect.
So they're... Man, I'm bad at explaining this. Is this why I don't stream this game that often?
Oh wow.
No.
Yeah, considering what we do for a living, it's wild.
Oh, jeez. So, Red, how has the 2 million registered to you? Because I don't know if it just hasn't hit me or if I'm already over it. I think it's both and neither, because
Yeah.
it's been a long time coming, and once it's here, it's like, neat.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, I know it happened, but it's incomprehensible to me.
Yes.
So I'm just sort of just doing my normal thing, but like the part that feels real is when people say like congrats about it. That part I'm like, yeah, this is cool, and it's cool that they like it. But like when I'm just looking at the number, I'm like, that's a number, a ridiculous number. It's like, since I think we cleared the first 1,000, I haven't really been able to comprehend the meaning of how many subscribers we have.
Yeah. For me, it was once the size of our subscribers got to be larger than the size of my university. I'm like, okay, I can't comprehend a group of people this large at all.
Yes. Also, Blue, you have your Facebook notification noises on, and chat can hear.
Oh, whoops. Sorry,
Please hold
you
it,
can, there we go. You can hear
Yeah.
Cyan and Red furiously working behind the scenes to figure out how to do the subtitles. I
Yeah,
think
we're
the
fine.
answer is we can't. But
It seems to be a normal latency thing. When we're running fast latency, we can't get the closed captioning on. So.
weird. Man, YouTube,
Well, it's not that weird.
YouTube settings are wild.
It does take time to, do the audio processing necessary. And if you're
Yeah.
streaming it only a few seconds behind, it might not be able to do that. Anyway, but yeah, no, it's odd. Like, this milestone is absolutely buck wild. And I just... It's just like washed over me and left nothing in its wake. I think I'm like waiting for it to hit me at the right angle for me to be like, holy fuck! But I don't know. I worry it's sounding like ungrateful, because this is truly extremely cool.
It's extraordinary, yeah. But
but like it's extraordinary in a way that my brain is refusing to acknowledge on any emotional level.
yeah. The problem is, once we become larger than countries, it's like this makes no sense. This makes fully no sense anymore.
When we first got when we hit 1 million, they sent me the like plaque and a letter, and it said like, you're bigger than Venice, and I was like, oh god, don't say that.
yeah, because it's what was that? Was that for the 100,000?
Was it? would that not have been 1 million?
I guess because the population of Venice is currently 50,000 in the city, 200,000 including the mainland. So I don't know. It's been a while, and it all kind of blends together.
We are creeping up on the population of Rome, though.
We are,
well,
yeah.
when we get closer to 3 million.
Which is fun, yeah.
We've beaten Milan.
We
That's
have
cool.
beaten Milan. I was chatting with one of our Discord mods, Billy, saying that we are now numerous enough to take on Northern Ireland and recolonize it for the Republic if we so choose. We are not yet big enough to take on Denmark. Denmark belongs to the Aces.
I'm just gonna scroll down this list. We haven't beaten Slovenia.
Yeah. Slovakia? How about Slovakia?
Let's see.
I don't think them either.
No,
Okay.
Slovakia is sitting at 5.5 million.
Damn. All right. Okay. Yeah, it definitely is the kind of thing that, like, once you cross the first big one for you was 1,000. For me, it was like 15. It's like, okay, it's all basically the same. It's just a matter of, like, how many people we get watching our videos, and it enters into the realm of incomprehensible hugeness. But I think what kind of made me realize it was when other people started, like, sending us messages on, like, Facebook and stuff. So when we got the 2 million, like, we saw it in our YouTube studio, like, I was obviously very excited. And then
Yeah.
I went to go meet a friend for dinner, and on the drive over, I just got, like, bing, 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 like, call from mom, text from Hello Future Me,
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. I'm like, oh, wow, like, other people are really excited about this.
Yeah, I got a text from your mom too.
Yeah.
And we had to, like, record Rolling with Difficulty almost immediately, and I was like, all right, let's get this done. And they were like, by the way, congratulations. I'm like, oh yeah, shit. So, yeah, no, it's very cool. But it definitely feels more. I mean, it's when there's that many people, it's like that is incomprehensible. But when it's individual people who like and care about, then it's like, oh, this means a lot.
Yeah,
That's very
it's a
cool.
scale that we can understand. I think I've mentioned it on one of the podcasts, which if you don't know that we have a podcast, we do have a podcast. It's a really sarcastic podcast on all your podcast platforms. But I think I mentioned the one thing that kind of, like, made it make sense to me was hearing the way that, like, other people talk about OSP in the context of their friend groups, because every friend group has, like, a couple things that they all like to do together, whether it's an activity or sport or D&D or what have you. Kind of hearing that there are people for whom, like, OSP is that thing is like, wow, okay, because in our friend groups, like, there's stuff that we talk about that we're like so excited about that like whenever Joe Cat posts a new video, it's like, holy shit, new craft guide or whatever.
Yeah.
And then knowing that there are other people for whom OSP is a reference point that I'm like, oh, I get it. And of course, it's like numerically that's like 5 to 10 people. It's still very small, but that's the thing that makes me get it more than, like, a pure numbers thing could ever possibly do. So I guess.
Well, a single person contains an entire universe, and beholding that glory can be very dizzying. But then you look at, like, more than one person, and suddenly it's like they shrink. It's easy to lose that sense of personal infinity, and that's the problem we're facing with 2 million. It's like 2 million individual people, each of whom contains multitudes, is absolutely incomprehensible. But the number 2 million on my screen doesn't feel that different than the number 1 million on my screen did, even though it is twice as big.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh boy.
Big
It's
numbers,
very
big
cool.
stirring commentary from OSP.
Hey,
Masters of
and I-
analysis brought
and I
low
said I
by a
wouldn't use
number.
math on this channel. Oh boy. No, but it is very, very dope. I just need everyone in the world to like me, so it's pretty cool. But I don't know, it kind of it worries me a little when we get big to the point of incomprehensibility, because I'm like, well, I can't keep track of all those people. How will I know if they all like me? Anyway.
As soon as people stop commenting when Journey to the West, we'll know that we are no longer relevant. I joke.
Oh no, there's always more Journey to the West. Okay.
Yeah, sorry guys, we actually canceled our most popular series just on a whim, out of spite, actually.
Oh god, yeah. What a great smart business move on our part that is or would be. No, I'm working on it, guys. It's currently in the notes phase. It needs to be turned into a script, and then I need to draw it. Well, I need to record it, and then I need to draw it. So there's a little ways to go, but I always got to take my time with it because Journey to the West is really good as a story. Like, it's just incredibly solid, and I want to do it justice, which means all the frames take a lot more work a lot of the time, and there's more of them because the videos are longer.
A lot of them
Anyway.
have full backgrounds and stuff too, which is extra complicated.
Yeah. They're not usually that bad. You can get a lot out of just like a gradient skybox and then just like a mountainous background.
Yeah.
But it is still more work than just the white void I put all the Greek gods in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love this scene because it demonstrates how absolutely stupid the back half of Assassin's Creed 2's plot is, because Ezio loses about 90% of his brain cells the second he steps foot in Venice. So, for instance, what we're having here is that we have all of the conspirators, including this guy on screen right now, who is singularly responsible for the death of our family, and they're planning something dangerous against the current Doge of Venice, presumably to kill a sovereign head of state. And Ezio's like, oh my god, they're all here. I could probably take them on in a fight. I'm an incredible assassin. I could, like, throw a smoke bomb and kill them all, or just throw some throwing knives in them. This is an incredible opportunity that I would never be able to pass up if I ever saw this in the wild. It's a good thing that... Hold on, this cutscene's taking longer than I thought. Wait, we're gonna see this.
Wait for it.
Hold on.
Hold.
Okay, and then birds. Ezio gets distracted by birds and loses them.
All of them?
All of them.
Wow.
Some birds flutter away, and he lets all of these septuagenarian men just get away.
I was in need of more examples of what I call the idiot ball. I call it that because TV Tropes calls it that. It is when a character who is otherwise intelligent and a functional human being, for the needs of the plot, suddenly becomes stupid, as in they have picked up a ball that makes them dumb, hence the idiot ball.
God. The more that I go back to this game, the more I can appreciate how much stuff I still like, but also how asinine this game can be sometimes. Like, I thought Assassin's Creed 2 was like the height of like Ezio being cool. He's a moron in that game. Ezio is a blunt instrument all the way through the back half of this game, into Brotherhood especially. Brotherhood, he's truly at his dumbest. But AC2, he starts smart, and the second he steps foot in Venice, he must have gotten hit on the head in the carriage ride, because, oh my god, he's acting like such an idiot through the entire back half of this game. Up to and including when we get to the end of the whole, like, confrontation with, Rodrigo Borgia, and Ezio's like, killing you won't bring my family back, I'm done. And then he, is the better man by not choosing revenge, despite the fact that not choosing revenge means leaving an incredibly dangerous person in charge of inconceivably large amounts of power and wealth, to the detriment of the entirety of Italy, which the entire plot of Brotherhood becomes about rectifying after Machiavelli's like, what the fuck do you mean you let him live? Why did you not kill him when you had the chance?
I'm so happy, genuinely, because oftentimes when I do trope analysis, I struggle with the fact that I mostly only deal with stories that are good, and that means that a lot of the pitfalls, I'm like, I know that this mistake gets made, but I'm struggling to call up a specific example. And in this case, it's like, wow, they really did the if I kill you, I'll be just like you, after murdering your way through dozens, if not hundreds, of completely random people who deserved it a lot less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
And then,
God.
even still, by letting him live, causes inconceivably large other, chaos and killing for the rest of Rome in particular, and central Italy in general, because Borgia still being Pope allows his son Cesare to become a ruthless general conquering all of central Italy. So it's truly a bafflingly stupid decision. Obviously, they had to do it because of, the plot of actual history.
That's what I thought.
Borgia's still around, but they didn't need to make Ezio just decide to be an idiot. Anything else could have stopped him. So, yeah, I guess there's a trope example for you, Red. Go ahead, end of AC2.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, and then every conversation, I will probably end up streaming Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but it is because it is genuinely hilarious how dumb Ezio is. There are several moments where Machiavelli becomes a major character in Brotherhood, and Ezio are having conversations. They are usually disagreeing with each other. Every time that they talk on screen, Ezio is wrong. He is incorrect about whatever they are talking about every time.
Oh god, that's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah, it's really something. Where am I going? Okay, we're going to the piazza.
We're method acting. We're getting inside Ezio's head, who also doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, I mean, I love this game so much, fully recognizing how moronic it is.
I mean, you know, a lot of the most fun media is the media that is so bad that you can see all the factory seams where it was put together.
Yeah. Oh, God. But I still have this game to thank for getting me interested in history, so I'll take it.
Well, you know, that's the thing. I think a lot of times, like, stories hit us not because the story is good, but because it's hitting us at the exact right time. Like, it hooks into some part of our mind that wants something, that's hungry for something, and it's like, you can get that from this. Which is why I think a lot of the time, like, people develop these very fond, nostalgic memories of stories that when they revisit are like, oh, why did I don't get it, because this is just bad.
This is bad and dumb?
Yeah, it can be bad and dumb, but, like, that doesn't mean there's nothing of value there, or that the way your mind interpreted it wasn't helpful. I think it's kind of interesting because you get these, like, huge fandoms building around media that there's really not a lot there, but the fandom's just constructed from, like, we all got something out of this thing that overall isn't great, but, like, there was still nutritional value in it, you know?
It's not just empty calories. There's a little bit of stuff on the back of the label.
Like, maybe it was, like, 10% good, or, like, it resonated with this one very specific facet of my personality or whatever, but, like, whatever the reason, it ends up being like, oh, yeah, I really needed this one specific thing. And then you revisit it and you're like, I don't need that one specific thing anymore. So now that I'm, like, not, like, malnourished mentally, I can recognize that this doesn't taste very good, actually. And, you know, I think that throws a lot of people off, but honestly, it's just an incredibly natural part of the process of, you know, growing and changing. And, you know, sometimes when you revisit a story, you're like, oh, it's still good. In fact, it's good in ways I didn't even register before.
Yeah, that's
but sometimes it's like, all right, I rang all of the stuff I needed out of this on the first pass, and now we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is actually funny. They do a little bit of size distortion on this building. Each of these 3 levels, the pointed arches, the kind of weird, like, quatrefoil arches on the second level, and the mosaic pattern on top. They are each presented as the same size. The top mosaic section is supposed to be probably about double the height compared to what it is. So it's like a quarter, a half in height. But also they don't have all the windows. They're supposed to be like 5. And the reason I'm going to say it is because the last 2 windows on the right are a different shape and are shorter and lower down on the building because that part burned and they replaced the windows like a century afterwards, but they didn't replace them at the same level for a reason I don't fully recall. But they have pretty much all the windows in the right spot on here, which is unfortunate because it's so funny when, like, you look at the Doge's Palace and it's like, and then you actually look at it for like 10 more seconds and you're like, oh, these windows fully don't match. What happened?
That is another very funny thing about, like the second pass over something. Like, the first time, you're like, oh, this whole thing really comes together. But then on the second look, you can focus on more individual details and be like, huh, you know, that part's not great, actually. Or, like sometimes I'll, like, look at a piece of art and I'll be like, oh, that's beautiful. And then I'll, like, look a little closer and I'm like, oh, this person's line art is really shaky. They're just incredibly good with color. And, like, so the overall image works, even though if you look for the actual details, they just don't exist.
Yeah.
Which is good. That's a testament to the artist's skill to be able to, like, make a like ultimately all that matters is that the overall thing works. Like you don't need to be super intense on the individual on every part of it being perfect. This is why I think the nitpicking school of criticism is unhelpful at best, because it's like, congrats, you pointed out a fundamental characteristic of all art. There is a level of granularity at which point it stops working.
Yeah, I think to your point about like a lack of nutritional value in media, and when we kind of find our own, interest in a thing, or find stuff that maybe was not necessarily in the original text, elaborate like midrashic construction of paratext to make a thing more interesting than the original version was. The interview between Brennan Lee Mulligan and Matt Mercer, which I had you link, or not had you link, but I suggested to you, which you linked in a comic ask on your
Harry
Tumblr
Potter.
for Aurora, about like Harry Potter. The world building is dumb as shit, but like dun 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 dun, and the Hogwarts houses is strong enough that like that alone, the world building of just like this magic school was captivating enough that it carried the entire rest of the story, even when the entire rest of the story was nonsense.
It didn't hold up at all to the slightest bit of scrutiny. But the thing that's really interesting to me about that is the number of like Brits who are like, oh yeah, our schools just have that. We have houses and prefects and shit. We get sorted into them when we're little. It's normal. And so I almost wonder, like, does Harry Potter have that same level of like intense escapist nostalgia in England, where that's just like what happened if you were a kid who went to a boarding school?
Yeah. Every boarding school had that one race essentialist house that everyone had to just kind of grit and deal with.
Yeah, we all had the racist nutter house, it's, oh, jeez. But, yeah, I mean, but even then, like, a lot of the people I know who, like, have really, like, intense nostalgic connection to Harry Potter, it's because of something it did for them or something they did with it.
Yeah.
I've said this before. Harry Potter is why I learned to read as early as I did. Because I picked up the alphabet, but here's the thing you all gotta understand about the way my brain works. If I don't have some reason to want to do something, learning something is incredibly slow and painful for me. It's, well, most likely the ADD, but I didn't know that. I just thought that everyone was miserable trying to learn things until they had an external reason to want to know how to do something, and then it was as fast as humanly possible. So for me, I picked up the alphabet, I knew the song, I could pick out words letter by letter, but it was boring and slow, and I didn't have anything I wanted to read. It's like, oh, can you read this shop sign? I fucking guess, but like, why? I already know what it's called, I've heard you say it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But my dad started reading me the Harry Potter books as a bedtime story. And I got so invested that I was like, out of the way, old man, you're too slow. And I don't even know how the process worked, but by the end I could read, and I was just flying through those books. And we got to the end of the fourth book, which at the time was the last one, and I was confused because I was like, where's the rest of it? And they were like, it hasn't been written yet. And I was like, what? Because in my head, it was insanity that books were still being written because we had so many books. And I was just like, books are a thing that exist because they were made in the past. The thought that people, and just so you all know where my brain is at, my dad is a writer. He writes books. But the idea
still
that
or only in the past.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that like people are still in the process of writing books sometimes was not a connection my brain made. Anyway, so the point is, I understand the intense nostalgic connection to many series, but that book series specifically, because for me it was genuinely very captivating. And it did something very important for me, making me teach myself how to read. But at a certain point, you kind of got to accept that you did that. Like, the books were a tool that you used to help yourself in some way. I saw like a Tumblr post about this. Like, the books didn't save you. You saved yourself, and you used the books.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't Harry Potter, it would have been like Earthsea or Diana Wynne Jones or something else like that. And anyway, I think it's like you can understand that like a piece of art did something for you without that turning into like personal intense like loyalty or devotion to that artwork, because after a certain point it's a tool that you used,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I mean, on the subject of wanting to learn things because of interest and spite for like I must read it now. I was a similar way with math where I would only be able to like understand something if I could like grasp why it was useful. So when I first started doing like matrix math in like sophomore year of high school, I was like, this is what is this? And then my dad explained like, okay, well you can use it for this and this and this, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then like the next day I'm like, oh, I get it. And I'm like, really? Was that all I needed? And then, you know, like 4 years later when I was in college, I'd obviously learned a lot more math at that point because I'm like, okay, you know, I understand how it works. And then I got to game theory for my economics degree. And I'm like, this is arbitrary and stupid and I don't like it. And then I kind of never got game theory because like the mathematical way that it is notated is completely arbitrary and functionally only exists to solve problems that it created. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't understand it. I cannot see any of the use in this. And then game theory, I'm like, nope, not at all. Behavioral economics and behavioral psychology, like I totally got it because they weren't trying to make it math when it's not. But game theory, I'm like, this notation is absurd.
Yeah, chat. He's not talking about the channel game theory. Game theory is a branch of mathematics.
Oh my, yeah.
He's not just dissing. He's not dissing MatPat, guys. MatPat's
oh my
called
god.
Anyway.
That feel
no,
when
I
people don't know that math exists. Oh god, no. Yeah, game theory is a lovely channel. I really enjoyed watching it in the past. It's part of what got me into, you know, this whole field. No shade to MatPat, you know, fantastic creator. The mathematical branch of game theory.
Yes. No, I totally know what you mean. I mean, when my dad was teaching me math when I was quite little, I ran into the exact same problem. I'd be like, but the problem with teaching math is that sometimes, and he explained this to me, it's like sometimes the thing you use this for is not something I can explain to you until you understand it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I'd like concentrate really hard and try to be like, okay, we're doing this and we're doing that, I guess, and stuff like that. And then the thing is, he was right. In hindsight, I'd be like, that's where all the pieces lead. But the thing is, like, sometimes what that means is that if you show someone like the end point of like, we're going to get to here, we're going to get to the point where you can do this, and you're like, okay, all right, and the steps are this, this, and that, and you get the roadmap, and then you fill out the parts in between. It's like, all right, cool. The thing with matrices is interesting because I was like, this is a fun thing to do with numbers, I guess. But then I had a class on Markov chains that used matrix multiplication to calculate probabilities, and I was like, oh wait, is this the entire point? That like this is a really easy way to sort of visualize like multiplying and then summing a large number of things, which is essentially the way that you calculate like. Because then it's like, okay, you have a matrix and you raise it to a certain power, and that's to calculate essentially the probability of a thing after that many iterations. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's just the same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, after a certain point, figuring out math turned into sort of like, there's a big jigsaw puzzle, and you're putting pieces together, and once you have pieces, you can sort of see how they all fit together. Mm-hmm. And there's always more pieces. The puzzle doesn't have edges.
Yeah. Real quick before I move to a different part of the map, I wanted to point out here, if any of you have watched my Doge's Palace video that I did for Cyan as a wedding gift, I mentioned the inside of the Doge's Palace, the double colonnade with the round arches on the bottom and the pointed arches on the top. Interestingly, what they do with the game is that on the inside, it looks kind of weird because each of the tiers is the same height where the top tier is supposed to be taller, so it ends up looking a little bit wonky size-wise, but the far back wall and the right top wall in real life are only brick. They were never finished in marble, but in the game they finish it the way that this left wall was done, which is a kind of cute thing that they kind of complete it in the game where it wasn't complete in real life. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the where the level actually is now. I just wanted to point that out because I'm like, oh wait a minute, they do that different. It's at once worse and better because the proportions are wrong, but the finish is correct, which is cool. But anyway, sorry, Red, resume.
Well, yeah, I mean basically it's just that, you know, at least the way that my brain worked, I always needed one example of everything we were doing. Like, it's like, you can't breeze over any of it. It's like, okay, this is the formula for a linear equation. And I'm like, okay, y equals mx plus b. Can you please give me values for m and b and then show me what that looks like so I can put it in my head and know what it looks like. My dad, who, you know, was teaching me math, has a much more like analytical mindset. Mine is more geometric. I need to know what things look and feel like, and it took him a little while to kind of get that. But you know, that's what makes the learning experience interesting. You know, every student is different, every teacher is different, and communication between any two people is sort of basically a process of like refining oh god, there's terms for this. There's math terms I could be using to be clever, but my brain jettisoned them all after I got my degree. Basically, we're building increasingly higher order approximations of what actual point you're trying to make using whatever model the person you're talking to's mind supports. So the first order approximation is like, here's what I've said. I said what I meant, but what you understood was something different. So you respond and I re-estimate. It's like, okay, the first order, it's like when you're explaining to somebody how integrals work. First, you show them the curve that you're going to find the area under, and you draw just a rectangle under it. And you're like, this is our first order approximation of the area under this curve. It's going to be completely wrong. It's just a big chunky rectangle. There's all this space that it's not covering. So the second order, you do two rectangles, and each corner touches each up left corner touches the edge of the curve. So it's closer, but there's still holes. So now you do three rectangles, and then as you raise the number of rectangles up to infinity, you get a sum that eventually turns into an integral. And as soon as that was explained to me, I was like, I now understand everything there is to know about integral math. After that, it's just the formulas for the weird shit. So, you know, my good studentness was extremely situational and dependent on the teachers. But basically, the best teachers I had were the ones that figured out how my brain was willing to digest information, like what shape it needed to be to get through the round hole or the square hole. And that's how I learned stuff. So, and the stuff I taught myself was mostly my brain making that same connection too. So it's like, all right, I can't figure out how to read because reading is boring, and all the stuff that I hear is interesting to read, I don't know is interesting to read because I can't fucking read it. And then it's like, oh, somebody read it to me, and now I want to read it. You know, teaching is interesting and cool.
Leonardo.
Oops, sorry.
I think you just found your madman.
We're now beginning the flying machine subplot, which I think back in the day is what made people think that the Venice portion of this game was really cool, because you do cool shit like flying, despite the fact that the actual plot is asinine. And I think there is an important distinction to be made between characters and setting and story and plot, and how all of those combine into, or I guess, characters and setting and plot, and all those combine into story, but any of those things on their own are different and can be independently good or bad, depending on what the other ones are. So like AC2 has like one of the best settings in a game, some really great characters, but the plot just becomes moronic. Yet, you know, people still talk about how the story of these games was so good, despite the fact that, you know, sometimes you get characters acting like idiots, and it is, you know, fully an idiot plot in very present and core places. Couldn't get on the bridge. So, like, the flying machine is just so cool that we do that in this game. Even though the reasons that we have to do it are essentially, this last mission was Ezio and the thief guy Antonio being like, well, there's 4 guards. We can't kill them, so we're gonna have to find another way. Oh no, there's a fence on top. Damn, can't get in that way. We have to do the flying machine. So
Just
it's like the narrative
contrived.
backflips required to justify the cool thing will, in the eyes of a 10-year-old or 15-year-old gamer, easily be brushed aside as justification for the cool thing. But then when we go back, it's like, oh wait, wow, that's really stupid.
Yeah. You know, while we're talking about both math and characters in movies doing absolutely moronic things, I understand that you have watched No Way Home, but I have not.
I have watched No Way Home, yeah.
And when I was looking for examples for an upcoming video, stay tuned, you directed me to 2 scenes from No Way Home.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Because, well, I go ahead.
No, I mean, my knowledge of the movie is limited only to those and what I've heard you and Indigo complaining about. So, I feel like I do want to watch it in, like, a bad movie night style, like morbid curiosity thing, but nothing I've heard about it has made it sound fun bad. It sounds dumb and annoying.
Yeah,
bad.
for context, what Red was saying was, "Hey Blue, I think I might need to watch No Way Home to get examples of aspects of the idiot plot." And I said, No. I will give you 2 scenes. And I sent Red the clip of Doctor Strange casting the spell and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man in the mirror dimension, which are the 2 examples of the idiot plot points in that entire movie. And I'm like, here you go. And Red's like, awesome. Those parts of the movie are essentially kind of like with this thing in AC2, where it's like, oh, you can't climb a fence or kill 4 guards, even though Ezio has been proven to be an expert climber and absolute murder machine. Okay, well, I guess we gotta do the flying machine, and it's the dumb justification for the cool thing. Spider-Man No Way Home has a lot of really dumb justification for the cool thing of getting all the Spider-Mans together. And it's so frustrating because the parts of the movie where it's just Spider-Man hanging out are genuinely so much fun. It's just it's banter between, these characters that people like, and seeing the ways in which these Spider-Men have shared and differed in their experiences is cool, and I found that interesting. But the narrative hoist it took to get us there is just always in the back of my mind, like, this could have been avoided. This could have been avoided. And I think Spider-Man No Way Home is unfortunately in that spot where the justification required to make the plot happen is so over the top that unless you fast forward to when the Spider-Man show up, it's just always in the back of your head, annoying you for how stupid it is, even though the parts that are fun are really fun. So I guess that's my take, where, like, I watched it and I'm like, I enjoyed that movie. I don't know if I'd call it a good movie, but I did enjoy it. And then when I look back, I'm like, okay, yikes, there's there's a lot to be left wanting about with the way this movie was constructed.
No, that's fair. I gotta say, I know myself, and I know that I would be petty enough to be mad at this movie just for that one bit in the mirror dimension where Spider-Man defeats Doctor Strange with the superpower of math.
Math. And the way he says it is very funny too.
Math, yeah. Like, you can tell that, like, sometimes it's like we got 2 British actors and we're gonna force them to do American accents at each other for an entire movie. What could possibly go wrong? But, like, I noticed this when I was a kid, that a lot of media treats math like a magical superpower that some people have, that, like, either you are an absolute genius who can do, like, complex analysis in your head, or you're a normal person who knows how to add numbers together, and, like, that's it. And then as I, the first time I took a calculus class, I was like, wow, calculus isn't wizardry, it's just, like, a thing that you can do to calculate, like, areas and volumes and shit. Okay, that's fine, whatever. And then it's just, like, it sort of confuses me as an adult to still see stories that treat math like a superpower that you have or you don't, where it's like, oh, you know how to do math. Obviously, you would recognize that the mirror dimension works on mathematical principles that Doctor Strange has no control over, despite having total control over the mirror dimension? And being a surgeon who presumably went to school for a while? I don't know.
The most uncharitable interpretation is that all of these stories treat math like a superpower because they were written by liberal arts types.
Oh, no! I don't want to be that asshole who's like, if you knew any real math, you'd know that that's some hot bullshit. But, like, is that genuinely it?
That's why I said that's my most uncharitable interpretation of why those movies are like that. I don't think that is always the case, but I think it is the case enough of the time that it's like, oh.
God, I don't know.
And, like, I am saying that as a liberal arts type, so, like, no shade.
Yeah, but, oh, no. I think the idea that, like, knowing math means you are a human calculator is, like, it's an easy way for people to be like, I'm going to show that this character knows math. They're going to do, like, large number arithmetic in their head. It's like, that's a completely different skill set than studying math. And it's also hard, obviously. There's a lot to keep track of. But anyway, that one scene, I was like, wow, I know that that would annoy me, but you know who that would annoy more? And then I texted my dad, and I was like, hey, you know how you haven't watched No Way Home? I have a reason for either why you shouldn't watch it or why you should definitely watch it because you'll hate it. And I explained the vibe, and he was like, ah, yes. I don't think I have enough ways to describe how everything with that is wrong. So... Oh,
And what
boy.
was the type of spiral? It was like an Archimedean spiral. It's just the
Archimedes
most
spiral.
basic. Yeah, it's
It's
just
the
you
most
add the
basic
radius plus
polar
one each time.
Yeah, well, it's the radius times the angle, basically. So it's like the most basic shape you can have in a polar coordinate system that isn't a circle. And I think if I saw an Archimedes spiral of objects, my first assumption would not be, this magical dimension that we are in is governed by simple polar coordinate mathematical principles that the trained surgeon and studious, like, wizard man I'm fighting has no idea about, rather than, oh, I guess Doctor Strange made that go in a circle, or like a spiral. Okay, that makes sense. Everything here is kind of spinning all the time anyway. I don't know. It's just, like, of all the weak writing in that movie, that part's definitely, like, one of the, like, lesser offenders. But I am petty enough to be personally offended.
The way you said it in your Harry Potter thing was, in this case, I'm willing to be mean about it.
Yes, yeah. It's, I try to be very, like, charitable when I'm interpreting or criticizing media. I try to take the sort of, I think it's a Roger Ebert thing where it's like you look for what the story was trying to do and then you assess how well it did that, rather than being like, oh, the story would be better if it did this other thing.
Yeah,
It's
that's why Roger Ebert is kind of famous for giving bad movies, quote unquote, good scores, because it's like, of course, like, I'm trying to think of an action movie, like,
Mission
Die Hard
Impossible.
is not high art, but like it's really good at what it does, so
Yeah. And, that's really all you need to think about. Like, what's the movie trying to do? Does it succeed? And oftentimes that sort of means that I'll have complaints or grievances about a story, but I'll try and focus on what's good about it, especially if it's a bad movie where, like, everyone's already, like, complained about stuff where it's like, all right, okay, yeah, sure. We know that it looks ridiculous or, like, this actor can't emote or whatever, but, like, what works about this, Like the Cinema Wins approach, which I think is very fun and very optimistic. Like, of the two channels, CinemaSins and Cinema Wins. Cinema Wins is the one I still watch pretty much whenever it uploads, even if it's a movie I haven't seen.
There's something just nice about, like, positive, and I know that, like, talking, like, positivity in the midst of, like, bashing on the writing in a movie, but I think there's a difference between saying that the whole thing is lost because of this one thing and being like, look, I liked such and such in this movie, but let's just have a laugh at the fact that this one part was just so overwhelmingly stupid, and being able to recognize those two things side by side, simultaneously, that it's not like because a thing is bad, our inability to accept cognitive dissonance forces us to throw the whole thing in the trash. I think is probably the core distinction.
Yeah, I also think that it's important to know that, like, you have the option to be mean about something, but you don't need to take that option. And in fact, it should be an active choice, because it's like, when you're criticizing a piece of media, I think it's really easy to be like, oh, it's so stupid that they do this thing, and anyone who likes it is dumb. And it's like, that's a really dangerous thing to get desensitized to doing, because then you're just being casually cruel. And cruelty should never be casual. It's it hurts people, so you got to be careful with it. And I think, it's sort of like if you're in a kitchen and you have, a knife. You use it carefully and with purpose. It is for a specific thing, and you don't just get cavalier about swinging it around. And that form of sort of, like, harsh, actively, like... there's a word I'm not finding that's, like... Because it's not cruel. And it's not harsh, because harsh doesn't really communicate what I want. I think maybe malicious, but, like, the actual goal of some of this criticism does seem to be, like, this is bad and you should feel bad about it. And that is not the same thing as, this doesn't work and here's why, and it's kind of funny. But it's easy to sort of tip from one to the other if you're not careful, especially if you get desensitized to that sort of casual, like, spiciness. Like, one of the things I love about our audience, and I'm not even sure how we pulled this off, is that, like, the tone of our comments is almost always so, like, calm and understanding and like taking everything in good faith. Like there's very little sort of casual cruelty or whatever, and then I'll drift onto some other subreddit and be like, oh my god, how did any of these people function? Like everyone's just being so mean all the time, and they don't even seem to notice because that's just the tone that everyone here has. It's just the normal for this space, but in actuality it's like that feels like the kind of thing you should be aware of. So once again, shout out to all of you guys for being great.
Yeah, not only are there 2 million of you, you're
contempt.
Good noodles.
Contempt is the word I was looking for. That, like,
yeah.
Yeah, when you sort of, you know, when you have this like wellspring of contempt within you, and you just sort of let it out casually and randomly, you know, insulting your friends because that's the tone you have, or, you know, like people on Tumblr will sometimes talk about like just receiving extremely like casually phrased like insults or threats from people where it's like, if you were my best friend and I knew what you meant by that, that would be okay. But I don't know you, and this weird familiarity does not go both ways, and all I know is that you said something cruel to me and I'm unhappy now. Like, you know, it's a tool. It needs to be used carefully. So
like you know, not you, Red, specifically, but like you, general, like, and your friends after a certain point in time reserve the right to call them like, what's up, motherfucker, in casual conversation because you are friends. But that is an earned right.
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, like, there's care that needs to be taken. You know, sometimes people will have to kind of like muster up the oomph to be like, hey, I really don't like it when you call me this specific thing. You know, like some people have like, there are some insults that are a little more cutting than others. And there are people who have different, you know, sensitivities and stuff like that. And being able to sort of be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to actually hurt you. I was caught in the moment of playing Smash Bros. And I just really needed you to know how much of a son of a bitch you are. Like, you know, it's, again, it can't be done carelessly, and it can't be something that like you double down on, you know? Because if someone's like, hey, I know you didn't mean it, but I got hurt by that, like,
as
the
a matter
reaction
of
is
fact,
not to,
I did mean it. Yeah, like that's
like,
the last thing anyone should ever do.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I think like when I'm doing like media analysis, I try to take a kind approach, but sometimes I'll be like, all right, you know what? In this specific case, I'll let the gloves off and I'll let myself experience just a little spice on this one. So like when we're criticizing Harry Potter, I'm like, look, if it weren't for all the other shit about J.K. Rowling, I'd be very nice to this story. Like, yeah, there's problems with it, but like, you know, it's got heart. But because of all the shit with J.K. Rowling, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I need to be nice about this. I think that, in fact, it's okay for me to be a little, to let a little of my personal biases shine through on why, you know, this is kind of bad in a lot of ways. Like, that doesn't undo the good that they caused, but it also doesn't undo all the bad that they've been enabling. So, you know.
It doesn't undo the good that they cause, and it does not preemptively forgive, you know, the bad things. So, like, just because this, you know, this book was important to people does not give it carte blanche to not be criticized on the basis of, in this case, what the author has done in real life, and also what they've put in the books, because as we've gone back, people are like, wait a minute, there's some weird bad stuff in here. I also think a difference is, like, you know, the general rule of comedy, punch up, not down, I think also applies here to media criticism as well. Like, what people can say about a, you know, multi-million-dollar project that was greenlit by executives is different from, like, what is reasonable criticism for someone's, like, you know, personal art project, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's a difference between something someone did for fun because they wanted to and something that was done to make money by committees of people, you know, constructed in such a way where, like, you know, oh, if you can see, like, oh, this was done to make money, and I can kind of see, like, the casual greed underlying a lot of the choices that were made here, like, it becomes a different game at that point.
No, absolutely. Although I gotta say, like, I feel like there's nuance to the concept of punching up and punching down, because we are at this very moment celebrating having 2 million subscribers on YouTube, and I think for some people that might mean that like going after us would be punching up, but that doesn't feel like it to us.
Yeah.
As we've discussed, a lot of this doesn't feel very tangible or real. It's like it's very cool that the art we create goes out to that wide of an audience, but it doesn't turn into like a 2 million strong ablative shield that protects us from all harm or criticism or whatever. And you know, there are a lot of YouTubers who are sort of our peers who have dealt with just like really weird, like large-scale harassment campaigns and stuff like that like nobody participating in seems to consider that they were just absolutely brutalizing one basically innocent and even regardless one person who they didn't know. And it's like, it's fine. They have a pretty decent following on a website. So
Yeah.
I am the underdog in this situation.
Actually,
I and
real
my
quick,
5,000
I'm gonna crash
friends.
my jet here. I need to go grab my charger,
Yes.
but I will be right back in a moment.
Perfect. All right, chat. While Blue's away, what things should I read? We already did the Wonder Woman Joss Whedon script, and that was pretty bad. But like, is there anything else that we should do? How we feeling, fam? I think that there could be a lot of interesting stuff we could look into. Oh boy. Let's see. Oh, I've already read My Immortal, though. I have the stream archive somewhere, which was very fun. Shakespeare would be good. Movie script. Oh, so many options. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Guys, you gotta. Oh, The Cursed Child. I actually remember when oh yes, jeans. I am actually not wearing jeans right now. I'm wearing very comfy yoga pants. But were I wearing jeans, they would be from Lucky Brand. So everybody must know.
Are you talking about Lucky Brand? I just saw Cyan comment jeans.
I'm only talking about Lucky Brand because Cyan commented jeans.
Oh,
I was
okay.
asking chat to give me suggestions on things that I could hijack the stream to start reading.
Ah.
And chat brought up Cursed Child. And I don't know if you remember when the news first broke about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And they released like a plot summary. And everyone thought it had to be fake because
no.
it sounded like the worst, like self-indulgent fanfic bullshit of like, oh, this is Voldemort's secret daughter, and she has natural highlights in her hair, and they're gonna time travel to save Cedric Diggory. And everyone was like, well, this is fucking stupid.
That's funny.
And then it turned out to be real, and they did stage performances of it. So, oh boy.
Uh-oh, I'm not gonna make it. I picked the one route that doesn't have any fires to light. Whoops.
Oh no!
Let's see if I can. Nope. Yeah, no, not at all. Ah, well. Let's try that again.
Let me see if I can find that original article about the Cursed Child, because I remember debating with a friend of mine, like, is this real? Let's see. Oh, it's the New York Times, which means as soon as I click it, it'll try and make me pay money.
Paywall, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. Get out of here. Oh. Oh, just kidding. Yeah, okay. God.
Kick. I love that you can kick people with your glider in this. Wireless controller battery is low. Oh.
What?
Hold on. I can fix this too.
Let me see if I can find news from like 2018 about it, because I definitely remember reading just some absolutely hilariously sincere articles about it.
Are we still talking about Cursed Child?
I'm still looking into it, although admittedly when I look back at the 2016 reviews, they're all saying stuff like, despite sales, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child isn't magical to some fans, or, okay, we've got some opinions about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child from
Interesting.
Wired. Yes. Yeah, alright. Yeah, I mean, it's bad, but like, is it funny bad, or just like, why would you ever officially sign off on fanfiction of your work this, like, weirdly mid-2000s bad? Let's see. Guys, I'm not reading The Eye of Argon. The story behind that is very sad, but you should watch... Well, you should watch Dominic Noble's channel in general, but you should also watch Dominic Noble's video about The Eye of Argon if you're curious about context about that story. Let's see. Oh my god, didn't Jenny Nicholson do a video reading the whole Colin Trevorrow episode 9 script?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was oof. Honestly though, would it have been better than what we got?
Better in some ways, worse in others.
Well,
I
that's
think
certainly
is the
true.
consensus that I've gotten.
I mean,
There's some
is he the
real.
one who's
Sorry,
yeah, go
what?
ahead.
Good.
Well, is he the one who started shipping Ray and Poe? Like,
I have no idea.
I think that might have been that one. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if this is good, because the article I found is called "The Full Original Star Wars 9 Script is supposedly leaked, and it gives fans the ending they deserved." That could mean anything.
The original ending, I believe, was supposed to have Rey starting a new like Jedi school on Octo. So
That makes
like
sense.
in that regards, actually, kind of yeah.
But it's kind of like in a movie when you have like a traitorous character who's like sold out the good guys to the big villain for like money, and they're like, and my reward, and they're like, oh, don't worry, you'll get exactly what you deserve, and they're like, great, I see no red flags in this situation. You know, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah. What I am going to do is I'm gonna put on my map here.
Oh, I
because
remember,
keep
because he's the one who
crashing.
directed Jurassic World, and he just turned
is.
Poe and Ray into the couple from the, he's a brash guy who's constantly negging her, and she's exasperated and the only adult in the relationship. Together, they are wildly dysfunctional and probably shouldn't kiss at the end. Let's see. Someone did a comic adaptation? That's kind of cool.
Wow.
I just want the script, guys. I don't want articles about the script. Whatever.
Right now, maybe I'll actually have a chance because I can see ahead of where the fires are.
Ho ho ho. When I put out a call for like really good terrible things to read in the same line as that scrapped Wonder Woman script, I ended up finding that like there's a lot of just like supposed leaked screenplays that cannot at all be validated to be real.
Oh, really?
Like there was some like I want to say scrapped like supposedly like a maybe J.J. Abrams Spider-Man script that had like Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock, and
That's
I looked
fantastic.
it up. No, I don't think
I
it's
mean,
real.
It's clearly
is the
not, but
thing.
like the concept is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that actually. Because I remember like the farther down the rabbit hole I looked, all I found was like he released like a script treatment for it that sounded like okay, but it didn't have anything in common with the supposed screenplay I'd found. I did hear stuff about that Powerpuff Girls CW reboot script that got leaked and was so universally hated that
Oh.
it crashed the entire project. Did you hear about
Wow.
this?
No, this is like the
Oh,
reverse
man.
Deadpool.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that actual thing. Oh yeah, wow, it's on archive.org.
Wow.
Shout out. Okay, let's see. How am I gonna, oh, no, that's not what I wanted to, okay, yes. It's like, I don't want to get through a bunch of boring script directions before we get to the bad shit, you know? Let's see.
I'm just wondering how many times I'm going to fail this mission before I actually do it.
I did notice you keep crashing and exploding an awful lot.
Well, you see, you can only play this mission once in your playthrough, so I'm really trying to savor it. Because even though they remastered this game, they did not add the ability to replay old missions, which was a real disappointment.
Aw.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, the script is bad, but so far it's not very funny.
It's disappointing.
Oh, I guess, Buttercup is gay and cheating on her girlfriend. That's great.
Wow.
That's a great start.
What was that? Don't worry.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so they're just like teen delinquents. Great. Ah! All right, I found the first part that made me actually cringe in pain.
Oh,
Buttercup
okay. Go
says,
ahead.
"I'm not wearing that dress anymore. It's compulsory heterosexuality." I don't think that word means what you think it means, Buttercup.
Interesting.
Dad freaks out if we do anything off-model. He treats us like a product we develop.
When was
Technically,
this written?
2021, if the date on the first page is accurate.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, good. Chat's in pain. I'm doing my job correctly. Let's see.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
How can a dress even be comp het? I don't think that's how that works.
It's not. Compulsory heterosexuality is about being in relationships. She's talking about gender norms.
God.
Oi. Okay. Giant squid robot. Mojo. Oh, great. Jojo is a teenager now. And he's holding a Blossom action figure. So I think we can tell he has a crush. Alright, I don't like this.
All right, we're done.
We're done. We're done.
So now that we're back
Oh,
in
wait,
the...
hold on. I think Mojo just fucking died.
Nice. Now that we're back in the palace, I can kind of show a little bit of what I was talking about earlier, but without that dumbass grate in the way. Because let's just take a second, because this is the reason that we had to use the flying machine, because this grate was just too spiky, too pointy. We couldn't make it over this, so we had to use the flying machine.
Yeah, that was the only way.
Yeah.
Couldn't throw your cape over it and then just kind of climb.
Yeah, or like from here, just a long rope. Just completely impassable. What a shame.
Yep.
God. Yeah, but the interior here is cool because they have the double archway, where the bottom is the rounded arches and the top is the kind of pointed arches, which is like classical, the classical orders, but instead of columns, it's arches, which is kind of a fun touch.
Yep.
It looks a little more washed out than it does in real life. In real life, the shadows are a lot stronger on the inside of the colonnade, so you get a much more striking kind of like black and white contrast, which looks better. But that's game lighting in 2007 for you. So not bad, but
Yeah.
Ooh, this
good.
game would have looked nice with ray tracing. Damn.
Ooh,
Oh well.
Yep. Yes. Sorry, chat. Mojo Jojo does indeed die. They accidentally explode his robot, and he just fully dies.
Wow. That was very comp-head of them to do that.
Yeah. And Jojo is his teenage son, who I assume is also a monkey, or whatever. I was never a Powerpuff Girls kid, so Yeah, I can see why everybody hated this. It's not even funny bad.
It's just dull.
Signore, don't drink that.
Just dull.
Late. Doge is dead. What?
Oh no, it also has... Remember how they misused comp het? I think they're misusing virtue signaling next.
Wow. Was this written by a conservative AI to parody liberal attitudes?
Maybe they trained it on Reddit? I don't know. Jojo
Wow.
just said there is one thing people love more than virtue signaling, Gina. Okay, alright. Oh, he's the mayor now? Alright. Oh my god, they're referencing Harambe? What the fuck is this?
Wow.
Why is the CW still making shows? Admittedly, this isn't crazier than the shit I've heard about Riverdale, so,
I also think that what just happened was that since we stayed in the room where we were, the Doge is fully dying, but all of his guards just stopped paying attention to us. Yeah, we are fully incognito again.
Ha!
No one
Incredible.
cares. Really, guys? Wow, yeah, no wonder you died, dude. Your guards suck ass.
God, that's so funny.
Yeah, oh my god, no one fucking cares anymore. Wow.
We've totally sequence broken it.
Also,
Our
this is kind of
power is
funny. The kind of portico thingy here is a double arch on the inside of the courtyard, but on the outside it's this kind of pointed dealio. They just they copy pasted it on both sides, which honestly is not a choice that I can criticize. You can only model so many things. I'll let him have that one.
Incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, I do like hanging out in here, and unfortunately, this is the only time in the entire game that I'll actually be able to do this. So I'm trying to think
Venice
of like
tour.
what else can I see? What else is worth investigating here? Yeah. So this staircase was built by the guy who was accused of embezzling the construction budget for himself. So they fired him, but then the new architect they hired, who did the rest of this colonnade, their work was so expensive that it ended up costing the same amount as the initial guy's plans, except the only difference is that it wasn't being embezzled. So like it cost the same amount of money. All of the money went to the actual construction, which is still better, but like in the end the Venetian government broke even on this project because the guy they replaced the embezzler with was just as expensive.
Great.
Which is pretty funny. Desynchronized?
No!
What did I do wrong? I did nothing wrong.
Did it finally catch on to...
I think
Maybe
I left through
couldn't
the
figure
wrong
out where in
door.
the game you were. Yeah.
Wow. That's astounding.
Mm-hmm.
Stream started 69 minutes ago. Let's go, AO Pog.
Hey!
Oh, I have to kill Grimaldi. That's right. I forgot. I'm here to kill a guy. I forgot about that. Yeah, I left without killing this guy. Yeah, hey you. Hey douchebag.
Hey, douchebag.
Back here. Nope, wrong. Alright, I'm gonna
All
kill
right,
all
you know
you
what? This CW script isn't very interesting, but you know what I am curious about? The Wikipedia plot summary of Riverdale.
Is this what our streams are becoming now?
Maybe.
It's only a matter of time until Red goes down a rabbit hole of some terrible media property script.
I'm just curious about what the fuck is up with Riverdale, because here's the thing. You all need to understand this. When it first came out, and like one of their major selling points is like, Jughead's gonna have a girlfriend. I was like, great. There are like 3 canonically asexual characters in all of media, and you're getting rid of like 33% of them. Okay, cool. So I was never going to watch this show. And from what I've heard, this was obviously the right decision. But I just don't know fuck anything about it. And like, every time I hear anything, it's just so stupid. Oh my god, wait, Indigo, you have something to say about Riverdale?
Oh god.
Well, that's incredible, because I'm going to just, I guess, let's see. Oh, there's been 6 seasons somehow. That doesn't sound right.
No, I'd believe it. I mean
I
Supernatural
believe
ran
it.
for like, what, 20? 6 seasons of Riverdale is
15,
not that much
something
of
like
a
that.
stretch.
The audacity of these people to never provide an actual coherent plot summary of these. So I'm just gonna pick a random episode and see what they got.
Oh god, no. This is supposed to be about 2 million subscribers.
Archie founds a vigilante group to protect Riverdale High students. A character called the Black Hood takes responsibility for the shootings and murder of Mrs. Grundy.
What on earth?
The Red Hood makes a... the Red Circle makes a video calling out the Black Hood. I'm scrolling farther down. Veronica breaks up with Archie. Oh no! And Jughead breaks up with Betty. Oh no! What, oh, hold on, did somebody die? Oh no, someone got mailed a severed finger. Great. Hey guys, I think this show is bad, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, this is getting... I don't want to learn enough, about the plot to actually understand what they're talking about, so I'm gonna skip down to season 3.
Well, sorry,
You know
gang.
what?
It was nice talking about random stuff while it lasted. Red's in a world of her own now.
I think they're playing like a cursed D&D game called Griffins and Gargoyles.
Wow.
We're scrolling further down. God, this fucking show. Oh, great. The Gargoyle King from Griffins and Gargoyles appears to be the main villain of season 3, I guess.
Neil, you're alive.
You know, the funny thing is, like, Veronica Lodge is, you know, the Lodges are a real family, like a real historically rich family in Boston, the Boston Brahmins. And I looked them up because I was curious about how they made their money, because, you know, they're like an old-timey family in, like, New England who's very wealthy. So it was probably the triangle trade. So I looked it up. I went down the rabbit hole, and Wikipedia is really reticent about telling where the Boston Brahmins made their money. But I tracked it all the way back to when they were still part of the Cabots. And, like, in the mid-1700s, they made their money by privateering for the U.S. government against the British when they were doing the revolutionary stuff.
That's
so
funny.
I feel like that's actually a little bit better than the triangle trade, morally speaking.
For instance, if any of you have been to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, it is a beautiful museum full of way too much art, organized in a way that makes no fucking sense, and is frankly incomprehensible as a viewing experience. Even though it is still really cool, it's organized in the fashion of someone who is a hoarder would organize things. Like, testaments to museum studies that the way we organize galleries has improved immensely since Gardner's days. But, like, they're like, yeah, Isabella Stewart Gardner, like, was, you know, part of a very wealthy family and, like, married this, you know, Gardner guy who had, you know, like, a huge, like, you know, shipping stuff in, like, 1800s Boston. It's like, this is, like, one step off of the triangle trade.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you know, it's... Oh, boy. But I feel like piracy on behalf of the fledgling U.S. government is slightly better.
It's actually pretty cool. Like, that's kind of badass.
Yeah. I wish they brought that up in, you know, the Archie comics. Veronica, like, you know, how sometimes shows will do like a everyone's ancestors episode where they're all played by the same actors as, like, the main characters. Yeah. And it's just like Veronica Lodge, Pirate Queen. Although I gotta say, of the two, Betty's the one I probably would have guessed would be in the piracy.
I don't know anything about these characters beyond their names, and you putting them in the thumbnail of the Love Triangles video, so I've got fully nothing.
My uncle had, like, a huge collection of old Archie comics at my grandpa's house, and whenever we'd stay, I would just read through all of them. So I know a remarkable amount of classic Archie comics lore. Not, like, all the weird shit. Like, I know there was a run where Archie, like, developed superpowers and was, like Captain Pureheart or something, which is fucking stupid. And long story short, you know, it's a classic situation where the nominal main character of the love triangle is by far the least interesting character out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the least likable.
Classic.
Like, Archie is just kind of annoying. Betty and Veronica have actual personalities, and Jughead is obviously the character I like the most. So, I think the thing that baffles me the most about the mere existence of Riverdale is that nobody was asking for it. It was a punchline before it even came out. And nobody involved in it seems to be taking it seriously either. So my only guess is that it has to be doing some kind of tax break, or, like, somebody's embezzling money out of it, because I don't understand why it exists and has existed for 6 seasons otherwise.
Yeah. Because you'd imagine, like, there has to be an audience for it somewhere, but sometimes, like, I don't know a lot about the inner workings of television. I'm sure Indigo could speak to this more, but, like, I don't know enough to refute that, so I'm gonna say why not.
Chat needs to know that Indigo is furiously texting behind the scenes. She seems to have something important to say about this.
Well, I can't read and play games and talk, so Red, that's on you.
That's okay, I'll let you know whatever it is.
Okay.
Marco Barbarigo. Although his brother Agos...
You know, the CW hasn't been making money the entire run of Riverdale. It can't be a tax thing? What the fuck is happening? Did they make, like... Is this some kind of, like, Faustian bargain? Was the CW, like... It's just for art. It's not for art, Indigo. There is no art present. My guess is that, like, this is the price they paid to, like, make Arrow halfway successful for the first couple seasons.
Man, remember when the Arrowverse was, like, the hottest thing on TV? Even though no one really wanted to admit that it was good, like, people were still enjoying it. Simpler times. Simpler times.
Oh, God. I still remember the advertising campaign for it, because they would just have photos of, you know, the main character, Oliver Queen, no shirt, just pants, like in bus kiosks, just like glaring steely-eyed at the camera.
Yeah.
And it's like, Arrow coming this fall, and it's like, what the fuck is this advertising? Arrow is so funny to me because it is transparently obvious they wanted the show to be about Batman.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do it. So they're like, we're going to make Oliver Queen work for what we want.
You know, they had an intent and they went for it. I have to respect that. They knew what they wanted and they got it.
But I think we've cracked the code. I think that making Riverdale is the Faustian bargain the CW has paid for making the Arrowverse exist. And like all Faustian bargains, it's gone horribly awry because, of course, like everyone checked out from the Flash after they reset the timeline like the first or second time or whatever. And Arrow got weird and dumb after like 3 seasons, something like that. You know, all these shows that really probably should have ended, you know, like around season 3 or 4, and then just kept going long after the point where anyone had any ideas anymore. I don't know.
I remember liking the first season of Flash. Second season of Flash, I was confused. Third season of Flash, when they brought in, the actor for Draco, Tom Felton.
Tom Felton? I didn't get that far.
Yeah, he plays like the Alchemist or something or other. I fully was checked out at that point because I'm like, I don't know what comics this is based off. I don't know what they're doing anymore. But like, it was still in that space where like there was only so much of it that everyone could kind of keep up. And we were all able to actually like talk about things like as friend groups and stuff. I remember at college, maybe I just had a very particular group of friends, but like I remember the Arrowverse was like kind of the last time that we were able to like collectively talk about a TV thing kind of all on the same page. And then after that, like the last thing was the MCU, and now it's been a while before everybody's kind of seen the same thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like we
not
kept
necessarily
up
a
with
bad
Kenobi.
thing.
It's not a bad thing, but you know, like individual shows or like miniseries. Like we did that with Kenobi. When we were talking to friends, it'd be like, "Oh, have you seen the most recent episode?"
That's fair. I'm excited for Andor.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Andor.
Yeah.
I really liked Rogue One. I really liked Rogue One.
I like Rogue One too. I just, you know, there's only so much we can keep fleshing out all these characters that had one movie and then died. Anyway, so I remember hearing in the news that the CW has not turned a profit in years. And I kind of expected that to mean that they were going to stop making TV. But I guess that's not what that means. So...
I fully don't know. I cannot give you an answer because I do not understand.
Nobody can give me an answer. This mystery will haunt me. Oh, boy.
I like that twins are up here. Twins are up here is cool. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm just, don't mind me. I'm just, deciding what weapons to grab before I run out. Oh, hey, we've got the villa all done now. We've got our fun auditore flags.
Woohoo.
Nice. Yay, we got all the ivy cleared off the walls. Cool, look at us. We saved Monteriggioni.
Yeah.
Or not saved, but at least we made it rich and touristy. We gentrified Monteriggioni. Fuck.
Yeah!
Oh,
the
no!
rest of is gonna be terrible now. Well, someone in chat just asked me what my favorite X-Men movie is, and that's certainly a rabbit hole I'm willing to go down for a bit. But first I gotta know, Blue, which X-Men movies have you watched?
I have not watched a great many of them. I watched Wolverine before I was old enough to understand what a bad movie was. That is distinctly not the first movie I realized was bad.
Right. So, like the origin one with Sabretooth and Bad Deadpool?
Yeah, Bad Deadpool, where they're traveling through time, and I fully didn't understand that they were trying to show he was immortal. I missed a lot of what was going on in that film.
Yeah.
I saw The Wolverine, I think in a movie night with you and some friends. I only loosely remember this, because, like, it's in Japan or some nonsense.
Yeah, they go to Japan. It's, like, based on a comic arc, which is kind of, I think... It's one of those things where they actually, like, recreate a lot of panels from the comic really closely.
Which is cool.
But that is cool. So that movie were cool.
Yeah.
Parts of them weren't.
I haven't seen First Class. I haven't seen Days of Future Past. I haven't seen Apocalypse. I haven't seen Dark Phoenix. I haven't seen any of the new ones. I've seen Logan. I've seen the 3 Wolverine movies, and that's it. So when people are talking about, like, oh my god, the X-Men in the MCU, I'm like, I have no grounding, no basis, no understanding of why this is interesting or important. I didn't watch the X-Men cartoons when I was younger. I don't know if I just, like, didn't get the channel or what, but, like, I fully missed that section of the media landscape. So I have only the most basic of X-Men experiences beyond, like, literally the Wolverine movies and Deadpool.
Oh, I'm so happy. I can start from the beginning then. The first X-Men movie, I believe, it's just, I don't remember if it's called anything other than just X-Men. And it's from the era before the MCU, you know, sort of post, like, Catwoman and Green Lantern, where it was, I want to say that's correct. It might have been around then. So superhero movies didn't have a formula yet, and they weren't good, and they weren't really seen as high art either.
The Raimi movies, though.
Fine,
what about the Raimi movies?
That was I was saying. Yeah, like it was around the same time that the Sam Raimi movies were showing people that superhero movies could potentially be good, but they were still campy and, like, goofy, and, you know, they were sort of committing to the goofy bit. I mean, you know, there was narration and silly costumes and stuff like that, and they went just full on the, okay, yeah, we've got all the bad guys from the comics are here. You know, we're gonna do Sandman, we're gonna do Dr. Octopus, stuff like that. And they were good. The Sam Raimi movies were good. The X-Men first movie was okay, but it was also trying to be a little more serious, exemplified in a scene near the end of the movie where they're basically squaring up to go fight Magneto at the Statue of Liberty. So it's not that serious, but they all gear up in these, like, black leather bodysuits, and Wolverine is obviously, like, snarking about it, as he spends the entire movie snarking about everything that's happening because he's too cool for school. And he, as he's, like, fiddling with the suit, he's like, you actually go outside in these things? And Cyclops says, what would you prefer? Yellow spandex? Which is, of course, a hilarious in-joke as to what they all... it's a classic lampshade. It's what they wear in the comics. It's what they wear in the 90s cartoon everybody loved. So... a lot of people's response was, yes, I would have preferred yellow spandex, actually. But no, these X-Men movies are too cool for school. They're super serious. You know, Eric and Charles call each other Eric and Charles rather than Professor X and Magneto so much. I mean, they do it sometimes, but, like, you know, just a little bit. And the movie isn't good, and they also made some weird choices that I think anybody who liked the X-Men going into it wouldn't have approved of. Mostly what they do with Rogue, because... Rogue is a little hard to explain because in the 90s she's got, like, she can fly and shit, and she's got superpowers and like, she's really strong. And this is because in the comics, Rogue had at one point absorbed the powers and sort of personality of Captain Marvel, which is why she could do all that stuff, because her power is just power absorption. So people who liked the 90s cartoon knew Rogue as this, like, badass, cool Southern Belle, like, ass kicker. And people who watched X-Men Evolution knew her as a very different, like, she couldn't fly or anything, but she was also kind of, like, badass and had a good attitude and stuff like that, and she was kind of goth. And then in the movie, she is a textbook walking MacGuffin. She gets damseled almost immediately and just gets kidnapped by bad guys and spends the back half of the movie screaming for help, you know, all that stuff. And then they save her at the end, and that's basically it. And for people who liked Rogue, I think that was kind of unforgivable. The first X-Men movie wasn't great. So that's a good start. But, you know, people did watch it. And it's also got, do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else. And then she is toad with lightning. So really top shelf stuff.
What?
And I think I remember hearing that David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake, had some role in the script production of this movie, which is kind of great, actually. But then they did X2, which people think is the good one. And it kind of is. It's got good moments. It's got Nightcrawler, briefly. For some reason, they really didn't like using Nightcrawler. I think the effects just kind of weren't up to it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you have a character who can teleport, it's a lot easier to do that in a comic or a cartoon where you can just draw him in a different place than in a movie, where you need to deal with anytime he's in a scene with other people.
Oh no, match cutting. My weakness.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So he's got a great intro scene where he nearly assassinates the president because he's being mind controlled. And then as soon as they stop mind controlling him, he's basically out of the movie. So that's fine. And it's an adaptation of actually a really good arc in the comic called God Loves, Man Kills, where this, like, extremely zealous, like, TV preacher who hates mutants and thinks they're satanic, like, has a ploy to, like, mind control Professor X and use his powers to kill all the mutants in the world. The arc of the comic is fantastic. It's almost like Kitty Pryde's intro arc. There's some great moments. Among other things, the TV preacher, like, uses the existence of Nightcrawler as evidence in support of his, these guys are literally satanic, look at this fucking guy. And then Kitty's like, how dare you say that about my best friend Kurt? He's sweet and the best and incredible and awesome. And I'm like, yeah, he is. Say it, sister. So, anyway, the movie's not like that. It's not terrible. Not fantastic, you know, just a lot of stuff happens. And a lot of stuff that happens makes no sense because they needed to kill Jean Grey in this movie so they could do the Phoenix Saga in the third movie. And so at the end, they're like, oh no, Rogue crashed the jet because she tried to fly it with no training. What a dummy she is. I wonder why she keeps trying to do plot stuff. Now we can't fix the jet. And the dam is going to burst. And Jean Grey, who is telekinetic, gets outside of the plane and uses her powers to make the plane float, rather than staying inside the plane and doing that. And then she dies when the dam explodes. And everyone's like, no! Unprecedented! Jean Grey dying? No fucking way.
These movies are weird.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely shocking. And then X3, everyone knows is the bad one. And it is. It is bad. It is just a bad movie. And the interesting thing they do in this is they kill Cyclops because his actor, James Marsden, whichever one of those is
James
not
Marsden,
Buffy.
I think.
Marsden, maybe?
Yeah.
He, like, his actor was at the time, like, also in a Superman movie playing Lois Lane's other love interest who isn't Superman. And, like, the directors were like, oh, well, I guess if you can't be in the movie, and they just have Jean kill him unceremoniously off screen.
Wow.
It's like, what? Oh, yeah, Jean's back. She comes back and she's crazy and evil now because of, I don't know, the Phoenix Force or whatever. I mean, the movie's bad, so that's definitely not my favorite. The only thing that really works about those movies is that they have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in them, and those two are just incredibly good, and they're kind of buoying up the entire rest of the movie.
Yeah. I feel
just
like
these two guys.
the X-Men
Yeah.
exists in the same space in my mind as the Fantastic Four, where, like, my experience with it was only, like, the weird mid-2000s movies that came out. So when people are really, again, like, people are really excited for the Fantastic Four to be in the MCU, I'm like, why? You've been nothing but hurt and betrayed by these films for 20 years. It's like the same way I feel for, like, Sonic fans. Like, how do you have this much willpower to still hold on for it to eventually be good again?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. Like, there are other things. Like, if you like this, that's great. But, like, is this really the horse that you're gonna hitch to? Like, hasn't this done nothing but hurt you the past 20 years?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And whenever someone has, like, faith that the MCU will handle these characters well, I'm like, no, we know how this works. But it would be cool to see them cameo in a movie that wasn't Multiverse of Madness, where they all die unceremoniously. Anyway, so X3 was bad. And I believe that's, somewhere in the middle we got, Wolverine and The Wolverine, and those were all right. I mean, they were bad, but, like, okay. Origins Wolverine was worse because it had to do a lot more heavy lifting to, like, get Wolverine to where he needed to be. Of, like, he needs to have amnesia so he can't remember any of this shit. And also his relationship with Sabretooth isn't corroborated in any earlier movie. But, like, oh, they're blood brothers and they fought, like, 300 years of wars together. But this is never going to come up when he, like, hits him with a truck in the beginning of the first movie or whatever. So that one's bad. Like, the Wolverine, or Origins Wolverine is just stupid. The Wolverine I actually kind of have some fondness for. It's got some really great set pieces. They do the classic we're fighting on top of a bullet train thing, which is just always good for interesting choreography. Wolverine spends a lot of that movie with his healing factor fucked up, so he's actually, like, vulnerable for the first time, which is kind of cool. But I think everyone agrees that the X-Men movies basically only got good around when they did, basically when they did Days of Future Past, which was after they did First Class. And First Class is not as good as people remember it. The problem is, First Class has a couple scenes that are really good, and I did the One Excellent Scene collab
Yeah.
a couple years back.
Yeah.
I did
Classic.
a scene from First Class there because, like in the first 3 movies, Professor X and Magneto are the best characters in First Class. They have the most writing oomph behind them, the best thought out relationship. Their actors are allowed to have the best on-screen chemistry, and the price they pay for that is making Mystique absolutely terrible in this movie. She has no connection to the character she was in the first 3 movies, where she was a classic right-hand lady. She was the big bad's hyper-competent sidekick who didn't talk much but did basically all of the ass-kicking for him. And then her portrayal in the entirety of First Class is, do you think I'm pretty? I know I can shapeshift, but, like, do you think I'm pretty? And it's just like, oh, the depth and nuance on display. So anyway, also they introduce, I want to say Darwin, the X-Men whose, like, mutant power is adapting to anything that would kill him, and then they kill him first, and you'll never guess whether or not he's the only black guy in the movie.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. So there's really good bits in First Class, but it's not actually a good movie overall. And then Days of Future Past is an actually good movie overall, and has some really good moments. And I think it's entirely because that's the movie where we get both. We get Professor X and Magneto in the past and the future. So we get all 4 actually good actors. And there's a scene where, through Wolverine as like a psychic conduit, future Professor X and past Professor X get to talk, and future Professor X gives like a pep talk to past Professor X, and it's very
cool.
meta because, of course, it's also like a sort of passing of the torch of like, you know, I have been Xavier, but you can be Xavier too. It's great. And it's good. It's cool. Magneto uses a stadium. The whole thing is them trying to assassinate the president. Mystique gets a redemption arc that also doesn't at all match up with her arc in the first movies, but that's okay. It's fine. And that movie was good. It was actually good. And then they did Apocalypse, and that movie was bad.
Yeah. Real quick, while we're here,
Yes.
I should explain what's actually happening in this game right now. So the new Doge, after the old guy got killed, is evil. So we need to find a way to kill him. But he never leaves his palace. Never mind the fact that we literally just had a whole scene about getting into the Doge's palace. That was literally the entire point of the last, sequence. So we have to somehow lure him out. The only time that he ever leaves the palace is for the Carnivale celebration, which is the case because the game wanted to have Carnivale in it. Valid. So what we have to do is win a mask to basically, win the special, Willy Wonka chocolate factory ticket to get in. We can't steal one, we can't forge one, but what ends up happening at the end of the sequence is that we basically have the mask swiped from us, so we have to go and steal the mask anyway, and then when we get inside, they know we're there and have to hide, and, we'll see this play out. So the entire full premise of this sequence is that we have to do an arbitrary competition because Ezio, once again, can't get into, this one room, in this one building in Venice, despite the fact that he just got in there, and they have to do this entire, fucking game show side plot. Absolute nonsense.
Aren't we besties with Da Vinci? Can't he just make us a mask?
You might think, but no, they're numbered, so we have to get a real one. Again, never mind the fact that we just steal one later anyway. The Venice plot is so stupid if you think about it for 3 seconds, and because it's like, oh, the flying machine is so cool, oh, the carnival is so cool, and that's true.
Yep.
But you also have, the contrivances required to get there are so obtrusive to the plot that if you consider it for 10 seconds, you just get frustrated at how dumb this is. Where they could have had a carnival plotline without needing to go through all this mess, and could have just had it and had it be fun and fine without having to put in this weird bass-ackwards justification for something that doesn't even need a justification at all.
Oh, God. The level of convolution on display,
Yeah.
it's just truly ridiculous.
But anyway, please resume.
Very well. So the thing with X-Men Apocalypse is I heard it was bad, and I watched it, and I wanted it to be good. And parts of it were pretty cool. I was excited because they had Oscar Isaac, and I knew he was good, and he was playing Apocalypse. The problem is Apocalypse is kind of a boring bad guy. I think he's basically Marvel's answer to Darkseid, and Darkseid might have been DC's answer to Thanos. So, like, he's a few layers deep in we have a really scary, super powerful, bald, cool-toned alien bad guy. Yeah, so, one thing I actually did appreciate, I think I watched it when I was actively in my Middle Egyptian class, because I noticed that, when he first awakens, he says a word in the current approximation of Middle Egyptian. When Storm, by the way, Storm's in this movie, is like, oh, what are you going to do when you, like, use your crazy powers or whatever? He says, or, like, what'll happen to the world? And he says, Waben, which means cleansed. It's like a ritual cleansing thing. But when she says what, he says saved in English, and it's like, sneaky, that's not what that means. So there's good bits in the movie.
Yeah.
This movie has a young Nightcrawler, who they actually let do some shit. They don't really let him have a personality, but that's whatever. We get more Quicksilver focus because Quicksilver was introduced in Days of Future Past, and everybody loved his scene. He was the best part of the movie, basically. So they put more focus in him, and they have the audacity to kind of explore the idea that he is Magneto's kid, even though timeline-wise in the movie, that makes no sense. Because Magneto's been very busy, and he's already on, like, Dead Family number 2 in Apocalypse. But they did a few things with Magneto in Apocalypse that I wasn't sure how I felt about, which is that he's fully retired, he's no longer evil, he has a wife and a daughter, and he's in hiding because, of course, Magneto, like, dropped a Coliseum on the president and tried to assassinate him, so he's super on the run. But his wife and daughter are killed, obviously, because Magneto can't have nice things. And if young Magneto is no longer a supervillain, then how is old Magneto going to happen someday, eventually? So they decided that his original tragic backstory, the Holocaust, wasn't tragic enough. He needed a second one. And then Apocalypse shows up, and, like, his thing is he buffs the powers of his horsemen. It's Horseman Apocalypse. Yeah, whatever. And with his power being boosted by Apocalypse, Magneto returns to the abandoned Auschwitz and rips it out of the ground at the foundations. And it's like, this is saying something, but I'm not sure what or if I agree with it. So just a lot of interesting stuff in the movie that I wasn't sure how I felt about. But all things considered, the fact that they're like, they just keep having to re-traumatize Magneto because they keep speed running his arc where he's supposed to still be kind of like a bad guy like 50 years in the future, but they keep having him pull a Vegeta and, like, be bad but then be good and, like, help them out, and so it's a whole thing, whatever. And there's a couple great moments. Apocalypse has one really good scene where basically he destroys the entire world's nuclear arsenal, because this is sort of Cold War-y. I think that might actually be when it's supposed to be happening. And he has a cool speech where he says, like, you can fire your arrows at the heavens, but you will never strike God. And it's a good moment. It's badass. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie's not very good.
Damn.
Yeah, and then they also, at the end, they're like, by the way, Jean, remember Jean? She has the Phoenix within her. She like, kills Apocalypse with it. We get, like, a phoenixy cry, and she walks on air and glows with radiant fire and wings, and Apocalypse beholds her and says something like, truly I have beheld a god, or whatever, and then he gets exploded. And it's like, oh, okay, so Jean is already the Phoenix. And then in the next movie, Dark Phoenix, Jean absorbs the Phoenix Force from space and becomes the Phoenix. So it's like, wait a minute. I thought she was already the Phoenix. So Dark Phoenix is the one where, like, everyone sort of knows that they weren't getting more movies after this. And
yeah.
they didn't. Yeah, so everyone's a little bit tired, and everyone's kind of ready to pack it in. They also fully kill Mystique in this movie, so thus severing it from the canon of the original movies forever on account of how Mystique is alive in those movies. And that was just big because Jennifer Lawrence didn't like being blue and didn't want to be blue anymore.
Yeah, apparently the makeup was a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, well, they had to reshuffle it a couple times, just because, you know, being fully covered in any kind of substance for that long is kind of bad for you, especially if you might be allergic to it. So, but even then, there's good bits in Dark Phoenix, sort of. And honestly, there are changes they made to the original arc that I genuinely approve of, because I've read the Dark Phoenix saga in the comics, and it was like the 70s-ish, you know, around that time. And basically, Jean Grey in the comics before this did not have a personality. She was the token girl. She was like a telekinetic, but it was one of those, like, how powerful is she? Well, in some scenes, she's as powerful as needs to be done to get the plot done, and in others, she is so weak, so she needs to be rescued by the boys. You know, standard stuff. And then in the Phoenix Saga, she, like, absorbs this cosmic power and immediately goes crazy and evil and starts, like, eating solar systems. And, like, absorbing their power and, like, murdering millions of sentient thinking beings, you know, for funsies. And then they, like, suppress that power, like, they save her, and she goes back to being the Jean everybody likes. And then she's like, Scott, I can feel the potential within me to be evil again. You absolutely must kill me now. And it's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, this makes sense for her non-personality. So then she dies, and it's like, what a tragedy that we had to kill Jean because she asked us too nicely. And it really is kind of like a, oh yeah, I hate it when my female protagonists get old yellered, you know? So what they did in the movie that I thought was kind of interesting is basically none of that. Which is bold, because that's what they did in X3, because when Jean goes Phoenixy and crazy, like, she actually is like, Wolverine, you absolutely must kill me because it can't be Scott because he's dead already and we don't like him anyway. And you're the person on the poster. So whatever. And instead, in Dark Phoenix, she has this power and she can't really control it, but she doesn't lose her mind. She's just really scared. And her power going out of control and, like, hurting people is her absolute worst nightmare. And at the end, she sort of gets a handle on it. The bad guy of the movie is aliens. By the way, there are aliens now, and they want to take the Phoenix Force from her. They want to use it, and she doesn't particularly want it either, so it seems like they're on the same side for a while. But then at the end, she's like, wait, you're evil, actually. And the lady, oh, it looks like she's going to absorb her power. But then it turns out Jean's just playing her. She's the one actually pouring her power into her, and it's too much, so she explodes. But then Jean kind of, like, sees that her aura, just the raw presence of her, is, like, disintegrating the people around her a little bit. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm too powerful for this planet. And she just straight up goes into space. She, like, flies up into orbit and just fucks off. But she's not dead, and nobody puts her down like Old Yeller. And at the last scene, when, of course, Xavier and Eric meet up for their traditional homoerotic chess games at that one cafe, there's a brief shot of, like, a Phoenix-shaped energy pulse in the upper atmosphere, like she's in orbit around the planet, keeping it safe. And it's like, of all the ways to change the Dark Phoenix saga, I don't mind this at all. But the rest of the movie's not very fun. So, you know. So I guess overall, Days of Future Past is what I think is the best X-Men movie. I mean, the thing is, Logan is objectively the only X-Men movie that is also a good movie. Just movie overall.
They re-released it in black and white, so you know it's fancy.
Yeah, but also Logan is so sad, and I can't really mentally reconcile Logan as what happens at the end of the, like, what happens in the future of the X-Men movies we got, you know? It's kind of like how I love Batman Beyond, but I don't like that Bruce Wayne ends up bitter and alone as an old man. Like, because that means none of his, like, romantic subplots go anywhere, and he alienates everyone in his life. So, like, I love that Batman Beyond exists, but the way I mentally reconcile it, is in my head, Batman Beyond is the timeline where Damian Wayne is never born.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, like, it's another timeline where fun stuff happens and we get Terry McGinnis, everyone's favorite, and, you know, all that cool shit. But, like, in the main timeline when Damian is born, like, that's sort of what tips it over the edge, so Bruce sort of gets a better handle on, like, being a family man and, you know, figuring out his life a little bit. So in my head, Logan has to be sort of its own little splintered bad ending timeline. And with that in mind, I don't mind it so much. Because it's so sad, and like,
Yeah,
it's...
it must be really hard to, like, as someone who likes the character of Wolverine, watch Logan and seeing him be this.
It's painful. I mean, it's intentionally so. And that movie does something that only a few other pieces of media have pulled off, which is it sort of pulls on tiny bits of nostalgia you didn't know you had. Like, you didn't know you missed it until you got it again, and you're like, oh my god, I've missed that. And there's little bits, because the way Hugh Jackman plays old Wolverine is, like, very, very depressing, obviously. And then we get a couple hints of, like, young, energetic Wolverine. Like, there's, like, a little bit where I think, like, Xavier, like, ribs him a little for having to use reading glasses, and he just, like, raises an eyebrow. And it's just like, oh, right, that's the I'm too cool for school expression he did in every one of the early X-Men movies. That's neat. And at the very end, when he kind of is like, all right, I gotta save X-23 or Laurel Kinney, but, you know, I don't have it in me. My body's falling apart, so I'm gonna use the booster mutant juice, the stuff that gives me crazy powers. And he just, after he does it, he just roars. And the thing is, Wolverine yells a lot in those first 3 movies. And up to that point in Logan, he hasn't yelled. He's like, you know, he's been in pain and he's like grunted and stuff, but it's not the same thing as a full on. It's not the same as a battle cry. And when you hear that echoing through the woods just before he goes beast mode and just like rips these guys up, you're
That's
like,
pretty fun.
he's back. But then he dies, obviously. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, cool. But you know, that kind of like auditory nostalgia is something that once you get it, you're like, oh my god, I missed this. But then it's so sad. It's so sad.
Yeah.
I know that's the point, but I haven't rewatched Logan since I saw it in theaters because
Same.
it's just like, that's a good movie. I never want to see it again.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
happened was I flubbed a jump, landed in the lake, or the lagoon, sorry, and then I missed the end by about 2 seconds, so I'm going to try that again.
Oh,
Because lest we
okay.
forget, this game was from the time when the game took all of your controller inputs exactly, and if you ever so slightly tilted in a different direction, the game's like, I'm going to put you exactly where you told me to put you. Not where you, the player, want to go, but where the controller says. And it's not that this game, like, misreads your inputs, it reads them a little unforgivingly too well.
Gotcha, yeah.
So
That's
right
the problem
here,
with
I
computers.
completely beefed it and fell right smack in the lake.
I see.
Which is why I lost.
Yeah, the problem
right
is,
here.
you know, computers will do exactly what you tell them to do, no
Yep.
more, no less. So, and also, chat just reminded me, Deadpool is also technically an X-Men movie.
Another one.
liked-
Let's go.
Yeah, I liked Deadpool. I haven't actually seen Deadpool 2. Didn't really interest me. Don't know why. I think maybe
Deadpool
that
2
came out
was,
shortly.
was pretty good. It was fun in its own way. It definitely wasn't as memorable as Deadpool 1. Because there was more, like, weird stuff they had to do beyond just, like, establishing the character of Deadpool. I think it was good in its own ways, but Deadpool 1 was definitely, like, the movie.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I think, when did Deadpool 2 come out? Like, in relation to, like, Infinity War and Endgame?
Before.
Before? Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know then. I thought maybe I had, like, Marvel fatigue. Okay, obviously I haven't seen New Mutants, because everyone knew that thing was a hot turd on a plate, so, like, come on, man. Oh,
Yeah, they were
I love it
both
when a character...
2018. Deadpool
Yeah.
came out in May. Infinity War came out... Oh, in April. It was 1 month after. Wow, the dissonance. Never mind. Deadpool 2 barely came out after Infinity War.
That might be why I didn't see it, honestly. Because I think my growing disappointment with the MCU started with Infinity War. Specifically, they made some writing decisions where my attitude was basically, okay, if they fix that in Endgame, this will be fine. If they don't, it will have just been a bad writing decision. And they didn't fix them in Endgame. So I went in sort of being like, all right, I'm sort of going in a little bit disappointed. And if you can, you know, if you loop this back around so that that arc wasn't fully wasted or that character wasn't killed absolutely uselessly, then we'll be okay. And they did. So I was just like, okay. And I think that just took a lot of the wind out of my sails in watching just random superhero movies because, you know, I had no reason not to watch Deadpool 2. I just think I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it.
Okay. With that said, can we talk about anything else now? Because I'm superheroed out.
Yes, absolutely. Terribly sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm glad we got through the whole X-Men thing. It's important to have gotten this out of our system as a collective experience. But that done, I am not ready to jump into an MCU thing.
That's perfectly fine. I don't want to do that either. There were a couple people in chat asking about the Sandman.
Oh yeah, you watched that and you quite liked it.
I did, yes. The thing, it is technically, although the show wouldn't let you know this, technically in the DC universe, so I wasn't sure if it counted in the superhero embargo we're currently under. But yeah, I really enjoyed The Sandman on Netflix. I do recommend it, especially if you read the comics and enjoyed them. I think it does something that I like in adaptations in general, which is it treats the source material like it's the first draft.
Yeah.
So there are things they can change and things they can shuffle around a little bit, move together for efficiency, shorten maybe, and it produces a more coherent story rather than playing too close to the original. Because the thing is, the medium of comics and the medium television have similarities in pacing, but they aren't the same.
No.
And getting too accurate to the original comic can be at the detriment of the show. My poster boy for why an accurate adaptation isn't necessarily good is the Maximum Ride movie, which has so many pacing issues because it's basically treating the original book like the screenplay. So there's like whole scenes where characters will just do the same thing for 3 minutes straight because on page it's easy to just have like a paragraph of dialogue and not have to fill it with interesting blocking or dialogue, conversations or whatever.
Yeah,
that doesn't work in a movie.
You're not worrying about visuals when you're writing because it's all just,
Exactly.
the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. You're basically just inside characters' heads when you're writing, but when you're showing a movie or a show, you're outside the characters.
Yeah.
The Sandman show is very, very comic accurate in certain places. Some visuals are straight off the page, but they also shift some things around in only ways that I liked. Because my problem, I've talked about this before, so I won't go into too many details, but the difficulty I have with a lot of Neil Gaiman's writing is that he either can't or won't write particularly relatable characters. Like, I don't mind it when a character has has traits that might make them difficult to relate to, but I do mind when characters don't feel like people, and that's kind of a thing that Neil Gaiman does a lot. And he writes a lot of characters that aren't people. He writes characters that are like gods or angels or anthropomorphic personifications of concepts. But even when he's writing humans, it's like, I don't know, this character seems really flat, and it feels like we're sort of outside of their perspective rather than in their head a lot. I mean, this is like a thing that actually gets noted by characters in story, like American Gods. Shadow Moon is regularly noted to not react to shit around him like a regular human being with emotions. Where it's like, hey, by the way, you're getting let out of prison early because your wife had an affair and died. And he's like,
neat.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Real quick, what just happened
Yes.
in the game was that we finished all the tasks, like, winner, amazing protagonist, everyone clapped. And then what happened is they're like, the winner of the golden mask to get into this one party is this other guy because bribery. If they just gave us the mask, we could have gone to the party and it wouldn't have been as stupid. But we had to go through all of these carnival games to win the mask and then not win the mask, and now we're going to have to go steal it from him. They could have avoided the contrivance by just letting us win.
God, that's
But
so funny.
because they add in this extra step, it highlights how easily we could have skipped the entire first part of this process in the first place, which
Wow,
is
they're
dumb.
just fully-
And
they're
then
just
after the
joking
Sandman thing, I
around at
also
this
want
point.
to talk about Critical Role and Legend of Vox Machina as a great example of first draft, second
Yes.
draft. But please continue with Sandman.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean that's another really solid point that I liked for the exact same reason. Reshuffled stuff, rearranged some stuff, used the original source material to create something new from. So the thing that I liked that they did about the Sandman is they made all the characters feel more like people. Like we weren't some kind of weird, impassive third-party observer watching these people doing stuff. Like, we got to actually be inside their heads, like seeing them feel things, Because a lot of the Sandman comics specifically, it has these incredibly gorgeous visuals and like these really striking environments, and they do fun stuff with panel backgrounds. And then all the dialogue is just two characters standing in a static environment, like real camera A, camera B shit, and it's just like, okay, cool. So the show does a lot less of that. Although anytime the show does a lot of weird camera A, camera B shit, it's when they're doing stuff that's straight off the page.
Yeah.
So they shuffled some stuff around that I thought was really good. They let the characters emote a little bit more, and most importantly, they let the main character emote a little bit more. Because the biggest problem that I have with the Sandman comics is fully intentional. The thing is, the character of Morpheus is kind of an emotionless dickbag. He's a jerk. There's a lot of problems with him. But also, he just kind of stoically stands around brooding most of the time, doesn't really react emotionally to things, and doesn't tend to express anything. Which is great if you're making a point in a comic about how this guy really needs to learn to loosen up a little bit. It's not great if you want an actor to play him. So, the version of Morpheus we get in the show is very, very slightly different from the one we get in the comic. Namely, he genuinely gives the impression that he actually cares about people and dreams under his care. That he actually cares about anything at all, in fact. In fact, the vibe you get from the show is that he cares about people, but is unwilling to admit this to himself or anybody else, which is a much more interesting character than someone who just doesn't seem to actually care about stuff. And the thing is, this is technically true to the version of him in the comic, but if you read the comic, you need to do a little more work to notice that that's Morpheus's vibe, whereas in the show, it's like, you don't really need to do all this complex analysis to be like, oh, well, yeah, he acts like he doesn't care, but then he actually took this action, which is kind, so we can infer, therefore. Whereas in the show, it's just like, you want to know if Morpheus cares about the people under his care? Well, his raven just got shot in front of him, and he's going to actively cry about it.
Nice.
Like the one... Oh, yes, go ahead.
Real quick, we had to do all this bullshit to get inside the party, and our friend is just in this party anyway? Just give her the gun. Just let her fucking do it. Why did Ezio have to do any of this if Theodora's just gonna show up?
We have a gun? I missed some stuff.
Oh no, this is just the lady who runs the like church brothel, because 2009 writing mandates that we have a woman who is empowered by fucking a bunch.
Of course,
2009 classic stuff, classic.
Yeah.
Which is not inherently wrong, but is totally incongruous with the rest of the story, and pointedly like she's the only one this happens to.
Of course.
So like, man.
Yep. Anyway, yes, I do really like The Sandman. I do recommend it to people who read the comics, and honestly, I'm interested to see how people who haven't read the comics feel about it. Because I know a lot of them exist, because I saw a lot of people being like, ooh, the ending is so open, I'm really curious what Lucifer's grand evil scheme is going to be. Whereas anyone who's read the comics is like, I know exactly what Lucifer's grand evil scheme is going to be, and framing it this way is hilarious. So, yes, I do recommend it. It's on Netflix, and if enough people watch it, we will almost certainly get a second season, which would be very cool.
I'd like to take a second to point out the fact that I hired a group of people to blend with, and then it didn't let me blend, and then I got found immediately. Yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be able to blend. Didn't let me do that.
Oh, God, I love that.
Oh, man, this game. The Venice part of this game drags. Oh, well.
Wow.
Just gonna hang out here for the entire rest of,
Someone keeps asking about a Journey to the West webtoon, which I haven't heard because I do read a lot of webcomics, but none of them are on webtoon. So. Anyway, but yeah, so The Sandman I think is an example of a really good adaptation. But your points about Critical Role and Legend of Vox Machina, it's another show that I like for basically the exact same reason. Although of the two, I like The Sandman more. It's more polished. In part because they've had 40 years to reassess certain things in The Sandman.
Yeah, no, that's
and
fair.
Critical Role is like 7 or 8 years old tops, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice because, you know, when you're playing at the table, it feels more, it's rougher, it's more loose, and that's definitely the point of it being a game, but taking that into the writing room, being like, okay, what can we clean up, what can we tighten, because when you're dealing with something of that scope, it makes a lot more sense that you're going to really streamline it down when you're dealing with hours and hours and hours. Not even just like, okay, we're going to make combat actually only be 6 seconds long in this version. But, all these conversations and role-playing, we're going to trim this down where, an hour of conversation at the table becomes like a minute or two in the show. And that makes sense because when you're role-playing, you tend to go at a more improvisational, slow pace, and it, I think, naturally suits itself to being streamlined in a way where, like, comics... I mean, obviously, the actual play podcasts work on their own perfectly fine. There's a huge market for it. People love them. But for someone like me, who absolutely does not have the patience to listen to... We calculated it once, like, hundreds of hours of D&D content. It's really nice to be able to just, like, see the vision behind it presented in these nice, simple, straightforward animated episodes as a condensation of, thousands of hours of content. I'm trying to focus on not dying here, so I'm not being very articulate, but I really liked Legend of Vox Machina a lot, and I think it worked really well, not only on its own, but also as like a really nice simplification to the essence of what made Critical Role work. Without being as potentially overwrought and lengthy and difficult to follow as actual play podcasts can end up being, especially with that much of a long catalog behind it, which is a credit to the players and Matt Mercer as well. It worked a lot better for me. I try to watch Critical Role and I'm like, this is really great. I can't pay attention. I lose focus and I get lost, but the show is great. It's condensed. It's all nicely done. There are things that, I think there was a thing where there was a moment that Vex had in the original fight that they kind of gave to Keyleth because it made more sense for her character, and that's the kind of stuff that you can do, and I thought was really interesting. So, yeah,
no, I agree. I mean, the thing is, like, the fundamental core of actual play podcasts is it's improv, which means there's no plan. Like, there might be elements planned, but ultimately it's a collaborative effort from a whole bunch of people, all with different styles and ideas. And that means whatever you get at the end is not going to be what any individual participant would have planned. And that means that watching it after the fact, it's not going to feel like a perfectly scripted, already, like plotted out linear story. They just are not the same kind of structure. But when you're making a show, you are scripting it out. And basically, if they had done, a one-to-one mapping of everything that happened in Critical Role, the first, 40 episodes, without shuffling anything around or changing it, it wouldn't have been fun to watch as an animated series. I mean, there are people who have difficulty getting through it even as it is now. And one benefit of changing things in the adaptation is you appeal to a different, potentially wider audience than you appealed to with the original. And, the biggest problem I have with Critical Role is the pacing, because it is not designed to be well-paced. It's designed to just be like, here's 4 hours of what we did. If you like it, that's fantastic. If you don't, nobody's forcing you to listen to it. And the show is very good at condensing that stuff, and it's very funny seeing people complain about, they didn't do this exact one thing that was very integral to episode 32 of a conversation that was half in character and mostly pop culture references. And it's I wonder why they'd leave that out.
Yeah, I think a good example is the door, and that door they couldn't open was a very funny thing, and it was animated to death, but the way that it's animated doesn't make sense in a kind of televised animated medium, because it ends up feeling very gamey, the way that they try a thing, they teleport inside the door, they do the thing with the sword. It is very funny within the way that the mechanics of the game work, but it feels more gamified, as when they do it in the show, it seems a lot more natural. These poor idiots just cannot open this door. And I don't know what it is exactly, but the things that they do with the door are still funny, and the core of that moment is still there. but it feels less artificial and it's like, oh, I'm going through the things on my spell sheet as opposed to I am organically struggling to open this door. There's a difference, and again, I cannot articulate it, but I think there was a lot of stuff that was done very cleverly to make it work. And again, and the original version is still, not invalidated in any way. It still exists. It's still there. It's still the, authentic first play of it, where everyone was at the table, and it feels much more alive in some regards than the animated medium, which is like it's paced, it's plotted, it's this and it's this. And it's nice that there are legitimate, wide, different audiences for each version of the thing. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when I watched through it, I gotta say, I think the first 2 episodes are probably the weakest of the show overall. Like, it picks up as we get to know the characters better. And they sort of have to do a little heavy lifting to be like, here are our unlikable and unheroic heroes. And then, like, immediately it's like, oh, actually, they're fine. But for the first 2 episodes, it's a little bit tough. But it's made up for the fact that they have David Tennant playing the villain, which is great, because he really, they're letting him be Scottish now, and it's just really, really great to watch. But there are a lot of reasons why they would have had to shift stuff around for especially the first season. I mean, it's not a secret that for the first 24 episodes, there's another player who's not in the show and for various reasons isn't affiliated with Critical Role anymore. And for other various reasons, they probably couldn't use the character in the show anyway because of legal stuff. So they cannot bring up or reference this Dragonborn sorcerer that's in the first 24 episodes of the show and was in the pre-show game.
Backstory, yeah.
Yeah. So they just okay, well, we're not doing that. So we're going to compress a lot of stuff. We're going to, some of the artifacts that we would have had for game mechanic purposes, we don't need them. We don't need the earrings that let everybody do sending to each other. So we're not going to do that, whatever. Just a lot of little efficiencies that basically mean hey, we're not going to treat the original as gospel. We're going to treat it like draft 1. And now we're going to polish it up, tighten up the pacing, loop a few things together so that we can make it more efficient, and then go from there.
Yeah.
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 I liked it. I thought it was good. I'm excited for more.
I'm deeply excited for the second season because one of the Greens, actually Austin, DM of Rolling with Difficulty, was watching back through a lot of Critical Role the year that we were roommates. So I got a lot of secondhand plot points at little bits. So I remember when he watched back the dragon fight, I'm like, oh boy, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do think that we are probably coming up on a decent time. Cyan is on her way back, so we can hold out if we want to say hi. But we have come to the end of the second memory sequence in Venice, so we wouldn't want to do any more missions because that kind of opens up new plot points that won't be resolved today. And the next time we stream, it'll be where did all this come from? Or basically we have to go kill these other guys. So the 2 people who were screwing us over in the competition, we now have to go murder.
Of course.
So
Very
that becomes the next plot point. But
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 million.
So we
Damn.
2 million.
Damn.
Yeah, I got nothing wrong against hanging out on the call until Cyan gets back. And then
I can train our sights on the. Actually, I'll just go over to the Doge's Palace. One other thing we didn't mention is we have new pins. We have a new run of pins for 2 million. They are the little red and blue plushies from the armchair and the detail diatribes.
Yep.
And they're very fun.
They're linked in the description of the video, and it's so funny that neither of us remembered to bring them up.
Yeah, it's it's in the description, and then just cleared it out of RAM.
Yeah, whoops.
Pretty
Okay,
much.
I'm actually curious. Let me see if we've sold any yet. Oh yeah, 22 people have bought them so far.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's cool.
We'll community tab it, and then we'll see the numbers come in.
We are also we talked about with CrowdMade the idea of actually making physical plushies. That's not a thing right now, but
Not a thing right now. It's a much
CrowdMade
longer
does
process,
do
which is why we haven't done plushies yet.
Yeah,
But
exactly,
if you are interested, it is doable.
Yeah,
It is
so
eminently doable. Not
we're
like
looking
right
into it.
now. It would take a while, but like
It will take
that is
a while.
a thing.
Yes, it is. So that's the thing we're excited for. Because when we posted like the T-shirts with the designs on, and everyone was like, "I would wear that on a shirt," we were like, "Oh, really?" I don't think we were planning on selling these on shirts, but okay. And we like messaged them about it.
Because what happened was we designed the pins, and crowd made as a gift was like shirts. We're like, yeah, and people are like shirts. We're like, oh yeah. Wait a minute, shirts.
Yeah,
Hold
sure.
on a second.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Anything else happening? Oh right. I did actually look up the thing that people in chat were that webtoon they were talking about. Someone's got like 3 chapters of a retelling of Journey to the West, and some of the panels very much look like they've been traced from my videos.
Oh.
I mean, I don't mind. Like this person is clearly kind of new at art, and it's, you know, everyone learns somehow.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Everyone's got to start somewhere, and it's, you know, there's only so mad I can be about that. So yeah, the resemblance does not seem to be a coincidence, but nobody, like, you know, don't be mean to this person. They're learning,
there's completely nothing wrong. I think an important distinction is that, you know, if someone's art is copied, the most important thing to keep in mind is not like, oh, how dare you steal. It's you're passing up a potential opportunity to develop your own style and talents in your own way. And again, like Red, I think you said, like, you know, you started tracing, you know, cartoon characters and like, I don't think it was Looney Tunes, but like,
yes.
you know, and or not trace, but like you started from
trying to figure out how to draw them.
yeah,
what
like
made them
reverse
look
engineering characters from you know the images in front of you, and I think that is a way that, you know, we start from what we know, we learn from that, and that in turn develops our style. But it is important to give yourself opportunities to just kind of like go for something and try your own hand and develop your own style, because if you don't, then you're eventually going to be stuck in the long term.
Also, this person is retelling parts of the story that aren't in my video, so like they are actually doing work beyond just, you know, taking frames from the videos and posting them as their own. Like they are, at every point, they do seem to be drawing it themselves. So like, I mean, you know, logically speaking, the correct thing I should probably do is be like, hey man, if you're gonna use my art, you should credit it. But it's like it's a 3-chapter webtoon with 0 comments. I'm not gonna get butthurt about this random person. It's fine. I guess thanks for drawing my attention to it, but like, there's nothing to worry about. It's fine.
All good here.
Yes.
Yeah, don't mind me as I'm looting
worries.
the dead. The thing that I don't like
it's all
about
good.
Venice in this game is that they load the rooftops with guards, so you always get detected all the time. Which, like, I get it. It increases the difficulty of traversing, but it's like I just want to run around. I don't want to have to deal with people trying to stab me.
And how
That's
many
no fun.
people would actually realistically be on these roofs?
Yeah, not frequent that guards were actually stationed on roofs in real life. It doesn't make sense. What crime would you stop on a rooftop?
Well,
Put them
you,
at street
evidently.
level. Yeah.
Okay, actually, question I don't know the answer to. Will the 2 million pins be back for Black Friday?
They will. They will, yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. They
Fantastic.
are now part of the Pintheon. We just wanted to wait to do pins of us for a suitable milestone, because otherwise it always felt kind of weird, like, making merch of us, which is also kind of why we've put off doing plushies for so long, because, like, it seems self-indulgent. It seems too much. It's like the gods are the fun characters. It's not about us. But in this instance, we're like, okay, it's 2 million. We're willing to let this one be about us.
I don't mind having a mini-me. I think that's kind of cute, but... anyway, yeah, so...
This is funny.
Cool.
If we walk closer to the palace, or to the church, it's like, whoop, the lights turn on. We walk away. It's like, wah. Oh my gosh, you can see the texture popping. Oh wow.
Oh, boy.
Oh gosh. Oh,
See, this
2009.
is the kind of, like, going back to way at the beginning of the stream, like, this is the kind of thing that, like, you could nitpick, but, like, why would you? This is just how the tech worked at the time.
Yeah.
They re-rendered, like, a huge chunk of an important historical city for funsies, and we're like, haha, it's funny that their lights on the inside have dimmer switches, basically.
I remember when this game first came out, there were like articles like, oh, digital tourism and, a digital museum of Renaissance Italy. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, these games are so important and cool. And I'm like, okay, no, they are just games. They can be important and cool and also be just games. I think sometimes we like, oh my God, this is amazing and incredible and unassailable. And it's like, no, this is fun and it was important to me, and also it's dumb as shit, and those can exist simultaneously, and that's fine.
Yeah, nothing is unassailable. Everything can be like. I feel like that's the thing. Like when we discuss art criticism, I always feel like it's important to focus on the purpose of the criticism, because frankly speaking, like, I mean, I think if you go down the rabbit hole of what's the point of any of this, you quickly hit the level of what's the point of anything, and that's a bad place to keep your brain for too long. But like, when you're criticizing something, sometimes there is a genuine question of like, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? And whenever I do art criticism, it's because I want to know how the story works, how it's put together, so that I can improve how I put my stories together. Like, ultimately, that is the point of almost all of the analysis I do, is like, what makes these stories work? What makes these parts of these stories work? And why do they hold together the way that they do, and what parts don't work, and why don't they work? And I think that is an important, I think that's a very useful reason to criticize. I think it's great to take something apart so you can learn from it. But I don't think this is universally applicable for all the schools of criticism currently present. And I sometimes catch myself thinking like, what's the point of this specific angle? What are we gaining from this? And sometimes when people just like unpack like, oh, this game is old and correspondingly looks old, I'm like, are you just did you just, I don't know, were you bored? Do you just, do you like making fun of old people too? What's going on here?
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus. No, I mean,
it's like,
there's a valid discussion of like, do games hold up? And understanding why they do or don't. And I think, it is important to pick on the video games industry every so often, because it is a ludicrously profitable industry. And when developing studios seem to be shitting out games lazily, it is important to vote with your wallet, but also criticize where applicable. And I think there's an important thing in being like, practices that are either bad for the consumer with, aggressive monetization schemes and microtransactions and stuff like that, which prey on people's gambling addictions. It's like, don't buy it. Okay, some people like can't don't buy it. Like that's the problem. That's the medical problem. It's also important to be like, oh, if something was designed poorly in such a way that it's like, this is not something we should replicate, it is important to draw attention to that, not to like shit on the developers who worked hard to make this game, but to be like, let's not take this forward for future people who are either making, or ourselves who are making, or anyone else. It's, criticism is important. I consume a lot of games criticism. I find it very interesting. I watch a lot of Donkey. The man is very snarky, and I enjoy that. Not because I like the negativity, but because it's always from such an informed point, trying to understand what makes things good in addition to what makes things bad, for the purpose of like, let us refine our tastes and be more exacting consumers that don't settle for products that are like deliberately lazy and carelessly made. There's a difference between like a guilty pleasure, something that's dumb but I also like, which is why I like these early Assassin's Creed games a lot more than I like the later ones, because the later ones are very phoned in how they're written and how they're constructed to just suck your time and get you to spend money in the microtransaction store. The design of the game draws you to do that, and that's a bad thing that detracts from the actual good parts of the game, and that is worth criticizing. So even when we're talking some fun shit on games, where we're coming from and why is important to keep in mind.
Oh, definitely. And I do think that the form of criticism of like, hey, this art could have been better, and I think you should make better art is a very valid, thing to suggest. It is a little interesting though, because I think that there's a place for, I think that there's an audience for any art that could conceivably be made. Because if a person is making art because they want to see it, by definition, that means that art therefore has an audience of at least one person.
Yeah.
And, I also think that not every work of art has to be incredibly good or incredibly profound. You know, there's a space for junk food in the average diet, stuff like that. But I also, you know, sometimes I look at criticism of certain like stories or games, and I'm like, from the tone this person is taking, you'd think that this creator was on like trial at the Hague. Like how bad really is it that this story did this one thing a little bit thoughtlessly or a little bit lazily? And like, look, I do bad movie nights. I think it's very fun to hate bad art. I think it's fun to be like, I'm unpacking this and all the ways it betrayed me. Like, that is fun, but that doesn't turn into like, and this creator I'm holding personally responsible for my pain. It's like, after a certain point, it's like, how much does this matter, really? And
Yeah.
I always worry, because when I get to the point of like, how much does this actually matter? I'm getting dangerously close to like touch grass territory, which is a criticism I try not to level at people if I can help it, because it's like, look, the fact is a lot of people are passionate about a lot of things that I don't understand, and that doesn't mean they're wrong or that I'm right, but it does mean that I don't get it. And when my reaction is like, well, if you were more worldly like me, touching grass, surely you'd understand. But, like, you know, sometimes I do see stuff and I'm like, really? Like, you're really, really hung up on this? Okay. I mean, really, so many elements of my life are like, I know people care about this. I don't understand why. I've learned to live with that. But, you know, sometimes I gotta let it out. You know how it is?
Everything needs an outlet. Oh, look, that's a beautiful little image there. It's obscured by my HUD, but I'm gonna leave this here for right now. Actually, this is a nice image.
Yeah.
How's the chat doing? Have we alienated everybody?
No, there's still about 2,000 people watching.
Okay, cool.
We peaked around 2,500, which
Yeah.
is pretty good.
Not bad, not bad.
Not bad at all.
The other important distinction with video games is that when the developer is asking $60, like, don't give people bullshit if you're going to charge them $60. That's also an important
Yeah.
aspect of it. Of like, some art costs no money to consume, some art costs a lot of money to consume, and if you're going to make people pay for something, don't have it be bullshit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that a lot of the criticism of being like, this cost how much is very reasonable, and holding games industries and like powerful institutions like that accountable is good. I think that is good. So
Yeah, I think
Yes.
I think we may be about at the end of the logical flow of conversation, because I am fully out of topics for today.
well, I mean, unless we want to load up an entire Shakespeare, for instance.
Nope, I do
I'm
not have
also
that
a little bit
energy.
low
I
on-
need to go nap. I have been trying to treat
Yeah.
myself for 2 million subs.
Yeah,
Sign
no,
and I have
definitely.
dinner reservations.
Ooh, I gotta drink more tea because I recorded 4 hours of Rolling with Difficulty yesterday, and then I did a 2.5 hour stream.
Yeah.
So
Was this the season finale?
yes, it was
Exciting.
So I'm excited for season 3 and some possible one-shot ideas we might do in the interim. But I won't
Hans takes
spoil-
over. I say that fully joking. I was not there for any of these conversations, but like,
Yeah.
if you want that, I don't know. Maybe put it in the chat. Let Indigo and Austin know, and maybe the Hans shot can be a thing.
Why would we ever need to go and revisit a high-level cleric?
Oh my god.
Yes. So
This
anyway,
is my
yes,
coup.
yeah. I mean, it's turnabout for all my After Dark solo streams. Actually, chat. I do want to say that if you have not listened to Rolling with Difficulty, it's available where all podcasts are platformed, and there's also a YouTube channel with VODs. And in season 2, the video VODs have battle maps whenever we do combat,
Very
so
cool.
you can actually see where everybody is, which is great. Now is a really good time to catch up. I'm kind of used to having like comments on my work now, but most of the other people in Rolling with Difficulty aren't so much. So it's great if you leave like comments on videos or like post art. Everyone's very excited. There's like, we've got like a little dedicated channel in the Discord where like we
It's
post
very fun,
like
yeah.
fan art we find. Everyone's very happy. So it is a lot of fun, and also like we're doing like a Spelljammer Planescape game, but like they just released an official like Spelljammer D&D 5e supplement with a bunch of rules for stuff that Austin has already homebrewed, and he's
Wow.
like, I don't know if I should get ideas from this or sue. So
Oh, that's funny.
but yes, very fun, good to check out. And Yeah, I mean, aside from the plug, I think that's basically me sorted.
Yeah, we got again pins in the shop. We'll put it on the community tab, and we'll be tweeting it.
We
If you
sure
want
will.
the pins, they'll be here for like I think 20 days, and then they won't be back until the end of the year.
Black Friday,
It's always
yeah.
the case. If you wanna go for them, I mean, obviously you're not obligated to, but like we always get emails like, "Hey, I missed the pins. Is there a way that I can get them back?" And like, sorry, gang, they're on sale when they're on sale, and then at the end of the year, and then we aren't sure when the next time we'll have them are because we make them in small batches, which keeps
Yep.
costs down as much as we can. So if you are interested, they will be in the store for 20 days, and then they will be out for the foreseeable future until about Black Friday or so. And then, yeah, we've got a fun video coming out on Friday. The exact nature of which will remain a secret.
Yeah, I mean,
unless you're a
yeah.
patron. Unless you're a patron, in which case you know.
If you're a patron, you've already got some idea, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess until the next time we stream, honestly, the odds are good that, like, Indigo and I will do some other Shakespeare stream or something similar at some point in the next, like, couple weeks. But, you know, until then, I guess.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.